Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the best entitled people stories we've read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled people you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that for every thumbs up this video gets, she won't try to get anyone fired for an entire week. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Helping out doesn't mean giving you $100,000. Disclaimer: all names have been changed. This story occurs on my wife's side of the family, so I have a second row seat rather than a front row seat for most of this. My wife's Aunt Louise is a great lady. She and her husband lived in the San Francisco Bay Area and bought their home in the late 1970s. After her husband passed a few years ago, she sold her home for over $1 million and moved back to live closer to her family where she grew up, farming areas in Southern California. She's in her late 60s. Aunt Louise has 3 kids, who are all now in their 40s. The 2 oldest are nice, normal people. Her youngest, Kay, is a real piece of work. She meets all the criteria for a psychological diagnosis of narcissism. This is just one of literally dozens of stories I could tell. First, some backstory about Kay's husband, Pedro. He was a good provider. About 10 years ago, things began going well and began making pretty good money. To Kay, however, higher income meant more spending, and soon she was buying a new car every 2 years. They went on cruises. She had all the latest and greatest gadgets. As the old MTV tagline used to go, too much is never enough. To augment her lifestyle, she would routinely run to her mom, Aunt Louise, with a sob story or another. We don't know about the true figure, but I've heard rumors that Aunt Louise has given her more than $20,000 over the past few years. Kay and Pedro managed to keep their heads above water, but when lockdown hit and the state of California ordered economic shutdown, money became tight. Then in October, the company went out of business. He found another job, but was essentially starting his career over. Naturally, they'd begun fighting about money, and 2 weeks ago, it comes to a head. After hearing the blasphemous word "no" one time too many, Kay announces she's getting a divorce. Being California, she naturally expected the courts were going to give her one last payday from this poor guy: her car, their house, his 401k, and generous alimony. However, in her greed, she forgot that Pedro had kept draining his 401k to pay off credit cards, and all those papers about the house she was signing every couple of years was to refinance their house to pay off more credit cards. So there's almost no equity. And with having to start his career over, alimony wasn't going to be that great. So Kay does what she always does, goes running to her mother, Aunt Louise. Aunt Louise is naturally sympathetic and urges Kay to try and reconcile, but failing that, she might be able to help her out. Literally 2 hours later, Kay texts Aunt Louise with a photo of a pricey condo and asks for $100,000 to cover her down payment and costs to furnish it. Aunt Louise naturally pushes back, telling Kay that helping out didn't mean $100,000. She had meant letting Kay live with her while she got back on her feet, writing a check for a security deposit and first month's rent, and maybe helping with some car payments. At this point, Kay totally flips out. Here are the things my wife said were direct quotes. I'm getting these third hand, so they might be slightly off. "I can't believe my own mother would be so selfish. What difference does $100,000 make? You're not going to spend it all anyway." Meaning before Aunt Louise passes. "Just sell some stocks or something." Aunt Louise, fortunately, does have someone who manages her money, but she stays on a strict allowance. After Aunt Louise held out, Kay had begun polluting Facebook with passive-aggressive messages about finding out people's true colors. My wife is actually hoping she calls to ask for help, specifically so that she can let her have it. What would you do if you were Kay's mother? Would you give her the $100,000 or not? Please let us know. I would disown her is what I would do. Revenge is a dish best served soiled. This is a story about how I found out my girlfriend of over 3 years was cheating on me and how I went about getting my revenge. This happened over a year ago, so it's been good to get it all down. Been thinking about it for a while. Certainly feels cathartic, and I've tried to make it as entertaining as possible. Thanks in advance for reading. I suppose firstly I should start by telling you how I met my girlfriend and what she came to mean to me. I first met Sarah at a yoga class in the summer of 2016. Never in my life did I think I would see myself going to something like that. The silly spandex, the holier-than-thou attitude, the way that everyone talked to each other so strange. It's not something I ever imagined myself doing, but when I hurt my back after falling from a first-floor roof at work, I decided to give it a shot on the recommendation of my back massage therapist and found a hall in my city doing beginner yoga classes. When the day to go came and I walked through the door, I instantly stuck out like a sore thumb. Everyone was standing around talking, dressed to the nines in their best yoga gear, while I sauntered in, wearing bog-standard shorts and a t-shirt, looking like someone from a cowboy flick walking onto a sci-fi movie set. I immediately wanted to about turn and leave, of course, but the woman doing the class saw the look of pure terror in my eyes and came up to me and said hello. I told her why I was there and that I didn't feel very comfortable, but she insisted that I should give it a try, as she thought it would help my back problems, and if not, well, no harm, no foul. I felt better at this point and thought, oh well, might as well try it and get my money's worth, even if I do end up looking like a diseased pretzel. It was then that I looked across the room and saw the same look of terror that I had no doubt been portraying. That was Sarah. She had not long ago found out that she had scoliosis after years of being misdiagnosed and told that it was all in her head, among other things. She was there with her mother, who was with her for emotional support and to see how she got on. After seeing her, I instinctively gravitated toward her in the same way that a drowning person gravitates towards a life ring thrown at them. After the yoga instructor had a chat with her, she shouted me over and said that it was Sarah's first time too, so maybe we should sit next to one another and give each other a bit of support. I said that was cool with me, and she also smiled and nodded, so I walked over. We hit it off right away. My emotions went from a bit of embarrassment to serious amusement as we both attempted to fit in with the rest of the class. After the class was over, we were still talking away, and I felt a genuine connection and butterflies in my stomach, and as we said goodbye, we caught each other's gaze, and she smiled at me with a purity that for the first time in my life made me feel weak at the knees. I wouldn't have went back in a million years had I not met her, but I decided to go to the next week, and when I walked in the door, I got those butterflies in my stomach again and was hoping to see her face. But she wasn't there. As I was sitting there, I felt this feeling of pure dread and was sat there thinking, what the heck am I even doing here? I felt this sadness that was hard to describe. It kind of reminded me of when I went to this holiday caravan park when I was about 12 with my gran and cousins, and there was this big center with pool tables and amusements and all that stuff. I remember seeing this girl there every night for a week, and I instantly fell in love with her. Didn't say a word to her, but psyched myself up so that I was gonna try to speak to her on the last night at the disco. But when we went down, she wasn't there. I'll never forget that feeling of sadness as we went home. That girl had walked out of my life, and she probably didn't even know she walked into it. I felt the same aching sadness when I didn't see Sarah. I knew nothing about her, had no way of contacting her, and felt this surreal sadness that was hard to quantify. About 4 months later, I was working on a roof repairing a truss damaged in a storm when we decided to stop for a break. As we made our way back to the van, the house owner came out and asked if we wanted a cup of coffee. We accepted, and she came out with coffee and biscuits. As soon as I saw this woman, I just knew her face from somewhere, but couldn't for the life of me place her. It wasn't until that night, after racking my brain, that I realized it was at that yoga hall I had seen her before, and it was Sarah's mother. The next day, I was back finishing the job, and the same thing happened. We stopped for a break, went down towards the van, and the woman came out asking if we wanted some coffee. After we finished up, I took the cups and biscuit wrappers back, and as I was passing them over to her, I asked how her daughter was, and was she still having back problems. She looked surprised, but smiled at me and said yes, then asked how I knew her. I replied that I'd spoke to her at a yoga class months back. She laughed and said she remembered me now. I then gave her a card with my number written on it and asked if she could maybe get her daughter to text me, as I wanted to get back in touch with her. Shoot my shot, I thought. Wish I hadn't now. I got a text message that night from Sarah asking how I was and that she had looked for me again at the yoga hall, but I wasn't there. Turned out she had went back the week after me as she thought it was bi-weekly. We met up soon after, really hit it off again, and after 8 months, she moved in with me. She was funny, smart, and sweet, as well as being the most uniquely beautiful person I'd ever met. She had a whimsical beauty to her, pointed ears, and defined features. She reminded me of a she-elf or something. I truly thought I'd found my soulmate. She had moved into my home and everything was going great. She was on disability and got personal independence payments and was getting injections for her scoliosis, which, along with painkillers and exercise, were keeping her pain at bay. We would alternate the cooking while she did the cleaning and took care of our cat, Mitzi. I was also making good money, so we were in a comfortable position financially. When I got back from work, we'd always be doing things like going out on walks or the like, just always in each other's company. It was at this point I was seriously contemplating proposing to her. Things changed around Halloween of 2019. Our love life was great, but there were times when she occasionally wasn't up for things, and I was fine with that. Well, around October, she started complaining a lot about her back hurting more, especially just before the times we'd usually go to bed. Thing is, she seemed fine in other aspects of her life. She seemed happy. The first real red flag for me came in December, when she completely stopped showing me affection. She just became cold towards me. She seemed repulsed when I put my arms around her or tried to take her hand. She was the one who was so touchy and feely, hands and hair, constantly reaffirming touches, kisses, and cuddles. When we'd sit on the couch, she'd basically be on top of me. That all completely stopped. Didn't for Mitzi though. Yes, that's right, I ended up jealous of our cat. At this point, we were in the new year, and I suspected her of cheating. She had become downright hostile towards me. I started trying to up my workload around the house, but nothing was good enough. I ended up constantly being belittled and walking on eggshells, couldn't do right for wrong, and was starting to become a humorless shell of my witty former self. One night, I got a hold of her phone and looked through it. Nothing. Was clean as a whistle. Wasn't even any messages from her friends or her mother, which I found weird. That was when my friend told me that if we were on the same plan, then I could check on the carrier's website and see all of the activity from her phone. We were on the same plan, and I paid for her phone. That night, I logged into my account, navigated to mobile, then her number, started to sift through, and there it was. Thousands of texts and calls to this one specific number. It had started 6 months previous, and it had dates, times, and how long the calls were. She'd be speaking to and texting this person for hours and hours while I was at work, deleted everything before I got home, then going cold turkey when I got back. I googled the number, and up came a local garage, one where she had got her car fixed previously. I remembered it taking a while for it to get fixed and her complaining about it a lot. The whole thing was a long, drawn-out affair, in more ways than one apparently. At this point, I was ice cold. I already had got into my head she was doing this, so getting it confirmed was more of a relief than anything else. I wanted to catch her in the act, rather than have her attempt to gaslight me and squirm out of the circumstantial. So I found out everything I could about this guy. I found out where he lived, that he had a wife and a kid, found out what car he drove, even walked in asking about prices so I could look this guy in the eye and get a measure of him. His name was Carl with a K. I knew the affair was physical for lots of reasons, but the fact that their phone calls and texts stopped dead from 1 to 2 each day said to me that that was the time they were meeting up. I came up with all sorts of silly plans to loan my friend's car and sit at the end of the street, then wait till she drove out, then follow her to the place she was meeting this guy and jump out of the car like, surprise! There were too many variables in that though, and I'm no private detective. One day I decided to drive by his garage about 1:30 and her car was just sitting there and the place was locked up, so mystery solved. I was at this point at the end of my tether and ready to just tell her that I knew everything and to get out of my house when she asked if it would be okay to go away to a spa place for the weekend, alone. She said she was depressed with everything with her back being so much worse, that this place would be great to help her with all of the things that she could do, that she could come back refreshed and like a new person. She was right about that, because I didn't know who the heck this was standing in front of me anymore. Obviously, she wasn't going there alone, if she was even going there at all. This would be a weekend getaway with this guy. I said fine. Now I had a new plan, and this would be the last thing I'd do for her. If you're thinking this is all too much, then you're right, obviously. But my position is, I wanted revenge, and I wanted to get her back with some style. I didn't just want to have her cry at me and gaslight me for days, then leave on her terms, with me being the bad guy. I would be the bad guy, but it would be my terms that she'd be leaving on, alright? The Friday came, and the spa was 100 or so miles down the road, so she decided to get a train. I jokingly asked her if she couldn't find something more local. Umming and oohing followed, till I told her I was only kidding. I got off work a couple hours early and took her into the train station, Despite her protest, she would get a taxi, as I wanted to see her off. We drive in, and as I'm looking for a place to park, you wouldn't guess whose car I spot. That's right, Carl with a K. I think I'm gonna have some fun and make her squirm, so I park up directly next to him. They're right next to each other, door to door, and she immediately becomes uneasy, not knowing where to look. I'm pretending to look for something, trying to draw out the moment, and the atmosphere is razor sharp at this point. What happened next genuinely caused me to do something out with my plan. She started to silently giggle. You know when you go to church and something funny pops into your head, and it's too hard trying to think of something else and stop yourself from laughing? Well, she's desperately trying not to laugh. I'm pretending not to notice. She's tapping her hand on her trouser leg, and from the corner of my eye, I can see him, with his head on the steering wheel. She actually lets out a laugh, then quickly disguises it as a cough and starts clearing her throat. I start doing the whole tapping of back thing, and I'm just thinking to myself, I can't wait to get you back. See, we all go through life being the butt of a joke at least once, whether it be passive-aggressive work colleagues or when you get up and try and do a talk at school with a face redder than the devil himself. But you never expect that crap from people who are supposed to have your back, even if you are conspiring against them at that point. I helped her into the train station with her things, made sure she had her bearings, said goodbye, and walked away. By the time I got out, Carl with a K's car was nowhere to be seen, so I went back home, composed myself, and carried out my plan. My plan was simple but effective. I started by having a locksmith come out to change the locks. I then proceeded to pack all of her clothes and belongings into bin bags and put it round the side of the house. On Friday night, with the noise of her laughing at me ringing in my ears, I did something I never imagined I could do. I took Mitzi's litter tray, walked around the side of the house with it, opened the bin bag with Sarah's belongings in it, and threw it in. Gave the bag a good shake, and then tied it up again. The way I saw it at the time was that it's cause and effect in action. She caused me to effectively put cat dew in with her things. If you're thinking I'm the jerk, then you're probably right. I'll never win any awards for being the nicest neighbor on the block. If I don't like you within 5 minutes of meeting you, I probably never will. And the only time I'd ever take out your trash is if you are trash. If you do break through those barriers though, I think I'm a loyal, caring person. I didn't do anything to deserve being cheated on, except maybe putting cat litter in with her things, but that was after the fact. I spent the Saturday in a mire of depression, answering her texts with the only energy I could muster, which wasn't a lot. I complained of a severe headache from a hangover I never had, and the texts dwindled. The reality of what was transpiring hit home, and for the first time since before New Year, I took stock of my life, sitting in my swivel armchair with Mitzi in tow like a Bond villain. Sunday came, and I was ready to execute the final part of my plan. Firstly, I drove to Carl with a K's house and put a letter through his door. It was addressed to his wife and basically said in block capitals, "Important, Carl with a K's wife, name, open immediately." Inside it was a letter outlining how her husband was getting with my girlfriend, copies of the phone calls and text log, as well as other information like they had been going together for this weekend. I put it through the door, rang the doorbell, and walked away. Got in my car and drove for a minute, then parked up again. Then I phoned Sarah. I genuinely can't remember a lot of what I said to her, but it was something along the lines of me asking how everything was going. She started to gush about how much she enjoyed herself, that she feels like a new woman, and that she could maybe see herself doing it 2 or 3 times a year. At this point, I blurt out, "How's Carl?" Her yapping stops dead. Silence fills the air until she finally says, "Who's Carl?" "You know," I reply, "Carl with a K." I then proceeded to tell her that I knew everything, that I had changed the locks and all her stuff was around the side of the house. Instead of being apologetic, she goes on a thunderous diatribe, blaming me for everything. At the end, I told her how her stuff smelled of Mitzi's dew and hung up. I blocked her number and didn't see hide nor hair of her until the Wednesday. When I came back from work, she was sitting on the doorstep. All the bags had been moved. I ignored her, walked around the back, let myself in the back door, and locked it behind me. Haven't spoken to her since, although she's made her attempts, including a letter. In regards to Carl, I don't know what happened between him and his wife. I do know that he said it wasn't personal to a friend of mine. That made me angry. Like, is that supposed to make it better? Someone saying something isn't personal just means it isn't personal to them. It was to me. If someone smashes through your front room Is it easier to get over it if they didn't personally mean it? Is it easier to pick up the pieces and put them back together again? No. I heard that lockdown hasn't been kind to his business though, but you won't catch me shedding no tears for that. Unless it's tears of laughter, that is. Am I the jerk for not getting dressed up with my wife? My wife, Sarah, is a senior surgeon and works very long hours. We discovered very recently that she's pregnant. While we were both delighted, it didn't take long for us to decide that I would be the one to take time off to look after the baby, as she is by far the higher earner. I work in maintenance, so I'm still going to work. I work long hours too, as well as crazy shift patterns, including nights and weekends. Because of that, and because everything is shut down, we haven't been able to spend much time together. I do most of the cooking at home because I'm better than her, and she doesn't really like cooking anyway. However, I got home yesterday and she made me my favorite meal. More than that, she was fully dressed up. I'm talking evening gown, heels, hair fully done, etc. She looked so beautiful, I wanted to marry her all over again. However, I was tired. I'd been working a 12-hour shift and just wanted to relax. I threw on a tracksuit and t-shirt, and when I came downstairs, she was obviously disappointed. She asked if I wasn't going to dress up, and I said I was tired and just wanted to eat. It was quite awkward between us for the rest of the meal, and when it was done, she went upstairs and said, "Remind me never to make an effort again." Later, as I was going to bed, I heard crying in the spare room. I went in to comfort her, but she told me to go away and leave her alone. Look, I know it must have been sad for her to get dressed up and for me not to do it, but I'd been working all day, doing heavy physical work, and just wanted to relax. I know Sarah loves getting dressed up and wearing beautiful clothes, and the pregnancy might mean less chances to do that. But she kinda surprised me with this. If we'd planned a date where we could both get dressed up and have a nice meal, I would have happily taken part. But I was tired and didn't have the energy. Am I the jerk? Edit. Okay, so reading these replies, it's obvious that I was in the wrong. I still think it would have been better if Sarah told me and we'd planned something, but after Sarah went to such an effort, it was only fair to play along. This morning, before Sarah went to work, we had a little talk. I told her that she looked beautiful yesterday and that I appreciate everything she did. I said I was sorry for not making an effort and said that as soon as we both get a day off, I'll cook her favorite meal and wear whatever she wants me to. I hugged her while she cried, and I told her that I loved her. I think we'll be okay. Well, what do you think? Was OP a jerk for not getting dressed up that night or not? Please let us know. You spoil me with that suit you wear every day, Mr. Reddit. That head of yours is just so round. Lady demands that I stop what I'm doing and open my register. Okay, no problem. I, male 19, work as a cashier in a gas station in Miami Gardens, Florida. Naturally, the people that come into the store tend to be on the crazier side. The store had a line of maybe 7 people. Now at this point, I had the register closed sign up, and I was stocking on the shelves behind the counter. My coworker was handling the customers in line. I turn when I hear the door opening. Another lady walks in without a mask on. I politely ask, "Excuse me, miss, do you have a mask that you can put on?" She scoffed at me and rolled her eyes as she dug in her purse for a minute or two. Finally, she pulls out a ratty little mask with only one functional strap and holds it to her face while she's waiting in line. Well, apparently she couldn't do that for very long. She comes to the front of the line, ranting and raving about how the line is too long and that we shouldn't be keeping a valued regular customer waiting. I've been working here for 4 months and I've never seen her. I'm fairly confident I know all of the regulars. I tell her that there are other things that my manager left for me to do before the end of closing and that I have to get them done. She didn't seem to like that at all. "I demand that you open your register right now." Okay, you got it, lady. I moved the sign and I turned back to her. "Do me a favor and stand a little bit to your side." Surprisingly, she complied, albeit with her arms crossed and what I can only assume was an angry gaze firing through her mask. Cue the malicious compliance. "Next customer," I yell out into the store. It dawns on her what I'm doing, but the next customer scoots up in front of the counter before she can even fully process it. I go about this transaction as normal, despite the fact that this lady is yelling at me at the top of her lungs, no longer holding the mask to her face, mind you. I finish up with the other customer and I turn to her. She tries to yell over me, so I raise my voice a bit and try to be as stern as possible. I tell her, "Just because my register is open now doesn't entitle you to skip all the other people in this line who also have lives and jobs and other responsibilities. Get to the back of the line and be respectful, or I'll have no choice but to have you removed from the store. We don't have security, but we're 2 blocks away from a police station, and one of the cool officers who comes into the store gave me their personal number to use, just in case we have any issues. The lady harumphs loudly and walks dejectedly to the spot in the line she had before she left. In the amount of time it took for the rest of the story to occur, more people had gotten in the line. "I said the back of the line," I told her pointedly. She dropped her shoulders and walked to the back like a toddler. People, man. Am I the jerk for getting someone fired when they made a mistake? I was at a grocery store shopping for supplies some weeks ago, around 5 or 6. My cart included some alcohol, so I gave my driver's license as age proof. Now, for context, I speak with an accent from my home country. English isn't my first language, actually. The cashier and I small-talked before the carting about the accent, and I mentioned I'm from another country. So when I handed my ID to her, she was surprised that it's got a US state on it, and she said it was a fake. I said, no, it's not, and she claimed that since I'm from another country, why would I have a US driver's license? I thought she was just slightly confused, so said, I'm not a citizen, but I've lived in the US long enough, and that's why I have the license. Also, I mentioned that my driver's license has a different state on it than where this interaction happened because I also lived there a few years. And she's still suspicious and said it's not a real license and she can't sell this to me or anything else in the cart. I said that I could just buy my basics and leave the alcohol and that she needs to confiscate the license. I was annoyed at this point and said, listen, it's not a fake. If you want, I can show you a picture of my passport to check my name and date of birth and know that it's not a fake ID. Then will you give me back my ID? Let me buy my stuff and let me get the heck out of a public store during lockdown. At this point, she loses her temper and says, wow, you're really full of stories and excuses, huh? This isn't my first day on the job. I know a fake when I see one. You aren't getting this back. And grabbed a pair of scissors and cut the card up. At this point, I'm furious. My card wasn't a fake, and I was happy to prove it. But now I'm stuck without a convenient ID document, need to go to the place, even if it's open, and sit in a crowd during lockdown to get a new one. And I need to start carrying my passport with me everywhere until it's issued so I have an ID on me. So I demanded the manager, created a big deal out of her behavior. I didn't yell, but I was absolutely furious and made it clear how much of a problem in terms of time, safety, and money she has created for me, and stormed off and received a gift card for my trouble. I didn't see her the next few times I went in, but saw someone new. Some polite questioning revealed that she was fired even though it was her first offense, because they weren't pleased that instead of escalating to the manager, the cashier cut up some customer's ID, willy-nilly. The new guy didn't know I was the customer. And now I'm torn. She was just trying to do her job, and I didn't expect her to be fired. And during lockdown where everyone is struggling, no less. Of course, I feel like I was justified in making a big stink, but I'm sure an entitled person feels the same when they make a big stink about a store not honoring an expired coupon. So tell me, folks, am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Was OP the jerk or was the cashier? Please let us know. That cashier deserved to be fired. Karen takes my necklace, gets banned from my house. A few months ago, my 24 female husband gave me a beautiful necklace when our son was born. The necklace was made especially for me, and it's really special to me. The point is that since my son was born, my mother, 44 female, comes to visit me more often, and my stepsister, 15 female, comes with her. And I like when she comes because she's really good with kids and my son loves her. But I don't like her curiosity. She's a really curious girl and she touches absolutely everything as if she were 3 years old. Sometimes she likes to check my closet, and if there is something she likes that I don't use, I give it to her since we're both very thin and most of my clothes fit her. But she knows that she can only touch my closet and nothing else. I never gave her permission to touch anything else from my room. Some days I take off the necklace my husband gave me because our son is growing up and he likes to pull it and I don't want him to break it. So sometimes I forget that I took it off and I leave it in the jewelry box for days. Yesterday I wanted to use it, but the necklace wasn't in my jewelry box. And I know that if the necklace disappeared, it was because my mother or my stepsister took it. So I called my mom and asked her if any of them had taken my necklace by mistake, and she said no, and sounded really convincing to be honest. But I can't say the same for my stepsister, because when I asked her if she took it, she started accusing the cleaning lady. But we trust her, and I know she would never do something like that. She's worked for my husband for more than 15 years, and she's like family. she would never steal anything. So I told her that if she took it, that she shouldn't lie, that I could buy her a similar one, but that one was really special to me and that I wanted her to give it back to me. And she gave it back to me and told me that she took it because she wanted to wear it to school and show it to her friends because it's a really beautiful necklace, but that on Monday she was going to give it back to me. I told her that what she did was wrong and that I don't want her to come to my house anymore until she learns not to take things without permission. And my mom told me that I was overreacting, that she was going to give it back anyway, that she wasn't going to keep it forever. But I don't feel that what I told her was wrong. She took something without permission and I don't trust her anymore. Am I the jerk for banning her from coming to my house? Edit. OMG, this blew up. But I just want to say that I edited my husband's age because I didn't like the comments I received. But since y'all can't stop talking about it, yes, he's 48. So he's 24 years older than me, and I don't care because his age has nothing to do with my post. I just said his age because many people do it when they mention someone, and as I mentioned him, I thought I should say his age. That's all. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let your stepsister come to your house again or not? Please let us know. The worst part is that the stepsister tried to blame the cleaning lady. Crazy Karen coworker tries to take my engagement ring from me when I show it to her. Okay, a little bit of backstory here. My fiance and I have been engaged for about 3 weeks. He got me the most beautiful ring that is exactly what I've always wanted, and it fits me perfectly. The only time I take my ring off is to apply lotion to my hands. I work in the medical field, which means lots of hand washing, sanitizing, and cleaning, so my hands get super dry. And when I do that, I keep it directly in front of me on my desk and within sight at all times. I have never had any sort of issue until a couple of days ago. I have a coworker with whom I am friendly. Let's call her T. We used to be very close until I figured out that she and I lead very different lives, and I don't necessarily jive with her morals. Whatever, live and let live. I let a little bit of distance form between us, but we're still friendly and still talk at the office. So naturally, I told her that I was engaged and she asked to see my ring. She oohed and awed at it like most people in the office, and I didn't think much about it. But a couple of days ago, she approached my desk while I was putting lotion on my hands with my ring laying directly in front of me as usual. Without asking, she reached down and picked up my ring and slapped it onto her own finger instead, holding it up and admiring it, etc. I was flabbergasted. I didn't even know what to say, and I was so shocked that I just sat there in uncomfortable silence until she made a comment about how it looked so good on her, and I commented, "Don't go getting any ideas," trying to be lighthearted, but also wanting my ring back. She eventually took it off and handed it back to me and left. I was super uncomfortable with the whole thing, but I put it off, thinking I was being too sensitive. Today, I was walking past her desk, and she asked to see my ring. I held out my hand for her to look at it, and she began to remove the ring from my finger, so I pulled my hand back. She got pouty and asked why she couldn't take it off and see it, since I had let her before. I told her I had not let her do that before. She had grabbed it without permission and put it on without even asking if I minded. She rolled her eyes at me and said I was being ridiculous. I feel like I'm justified to be protective of a ring that represents my fiance's love for me. Am I the jerk? Edit. Just to be clear, T is straight, although it would in no way bother me if she wasn't. She was married to a man, the father of her kids, when I first met her, and as I got to know her better, I found out she had a lot of side guys while still married and still expecting her husband to take care of her. I was being intentionally vague about it before because I didn't feel like it was relevant to the story. But since everyone seems very concerned, I'm happy to share why I began to distance from her. What would you do in this situation? Would you let her try on your ring and look at it or not? Please let us know. I'd tell her if she tries touching my ring again, I'm going to HR. Then again, I never had an engagement ring because Reddit boy's a cheapo. Am I the jerk for telling my dad the reason I don't respect him is because stepmom always tells him what to do? Title sounds bad, but hear me out. I, 16 female, live with my dad, 38 male, and now new stepmom Amanda, 31 female, and step-siblings Kate and Bo, who are 9 and 11. My dad has this problem where he just totally bows down to whatever woman gets with him. Every girlfriend he's ever had since my mom passed when I was 7 has been the one calling the shots with him. They'd complain about anything, and he'd end up handling it to please them so they'd stick around. It doesn't help that he's only ever dated one crappy woman after another. Within the last few years, I've stopped listening to my dad or any of his girlfriends when they try to boss me around, on the girlfriend's orders usually, because I'm tired. Dad has said I'm going through the rebellion phase, like I'm just being an angsty teen with no real problems. Amanda has taken issue with my bad behavior and is constantly criticizing me and complaining to my dad to straighten me out, and so he's constantly on my case too. It all came to a head this week when Amanda got mad at me for not letting her kids play with my NES. It's old and delicate, and her kids are not. I told her to buzz off, and if she wanted to keep her kids entertained, then she can let them play with her Switch, which she won't because they'll break it. So after that, she stormed off crying to my dad, who stormed into my room to complain at me for being so darn disrespectful to him and his wife. He said I needed to learn some respect for him, but I just lost it and cut him off by screaming at him. I said I don't respect him because he's a chronically whipped loser who would rather coddle his jerk wife than stand up to her BS. He looked really offended and got quiet before yelling that I was grounded, then he stormed out, slamming my door. Later, my grandma called and said I was being childish and need to shape up and apologize to my dad because he keeps a roof over my head and food in my stomach, and that's no way to treat him. Am I the jerk? Edit. To everyone saying you should have explained why you didn't want them using the NES, I did. I explained it calmly to her kids, then to her, but she said it was just junk, and if they broke it, then it wouldn't matter. That is when I told her to buzz off. Edit 2. Some people told me I can edit in more after posting. I wasn't able to include all details because of the character limit, but I'm seeing a lot of comments with the same questions, etc. So I'm gonna try to sum some things up here right now. 1. I've tried asking my dad to go to therapy with me, but he's refused every time. I've tried talking to my dad more than once about how him and his girlfriends/wife treat me and how it makes me feel like crap, but each time I'm brushed off. 3. Me being disrespectful usually consists of me not dropping my online schooling to go into the store for Amanda because she doesn't have makeup on, not letting our kids into my room when I'm not there, her son has sticky fingers, not doing enough cooking and cleaning despite Amanda having no job and not cleaning or cooking more than once a week, babysitting all the time, and basically just not being a live-in servant for her/them. I know that whipped isn't a nice thing to say, and I'm sorry for using it. I didn't know and just grew up hearing it from my granddad, dad, and uncles. 5. My dad choosing to coddle his girlfriends and wife isn't new. He's been doing it since he started dating after mom passed, so this blow-up wasn't out of nowhere really. I hope this clears things up. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her dad and stepmom? Please let us know. It's not nice to call that man whipped, huh? I can think of a few other words that you use for a guy like him. Be quiet, don't speak, just take a seat and don't say a word. Okay, no problem. A little backstory. This takes place in late 2014 and I was pretty fresh out of university at my first real job post-graduation. I landed a junior position for a construction firm putting up the condos around the greater Toronto area at the peak of the condo boom. I was lucky enough to be assigned to the lead safety team and the lead engineer was my direct supervisor. The company I was working for had just scored a huge contract to re-engineer/fix the balcony's glass on several condo buildings in the downtown area, all managed by the same management company. The reason is the glass they used on the balconies had a tendency to randomly shatter, sending thousands of tiny pebble-sized shards of glass raining down 10 to 35 stories. The official reason was a manufacturing defect. The real reason was prioritizing form over function. The company that built the buildings didn't factor in all of the vibration from the high winds and the heat from the city, and the solution was literally 5 centimeters of rubber, a thicker shatterproof tempered glass, and millions of dollars. But with that out of the way, I was employed in the safety department. We had a difficult time with the design/art department. They cared about form over function and safety. We were at the tail end of a project and about to break ground on a condo development. 2 35-story buildings surrounded by townhomes just off the lakeshore. Unfortunately, to the art department's dismay, we had to add in a wind wall right where the building was situated. It was a high wind zone because of the lake and the highway. There was this wind tunnel that would pass the back road of the building and winds at 100 kilometers plus. It's fast enough to knock you off your feet, but the design department hated it and thought it was ugly and cost sales. After months of back and forth between the two departments, My boss set up a meeting with the design department and put me in charge of doing the presentation, the new junior engineer, because in all honesty, it was just not an important thing. It was just to get them off of our backs. Well, it comes to the day of the presentation, and I show up a little bit early to set up, and I go find the boss of the department. I had never met the man before. Well, I get to his desk and try to introduce myself. I was met with a, "Be quiet, we're waiting for one of the dummies from upstairs. Just be quiet and don't say a word and take a seat." So that's what I did. I text my boss and explained what happened, and he said just wait. Don't say a word and just wait. So I did. 20 minutes passes and you can see the boss getting visibly agitated. Another 20 minutes passes and the man is seething with rage and makes a call. My boss texts me and he says the guy is going to call you in a few minutes. You have permission to say what you want. Well, I'm sitting in the dead silent meeting area and the boss makes a big spectacle of coming out and saying, "Everyone be quiet. I'm going to call this jerk and see what's the holdup." Well, my phone starts to ring and I answer. Before the guy says a thing, I spoke. "I'm sorry, I can't talk right now. I am trying to start a meeting, but some idiot won't let me." And I hung up. The man's face went red. He didn't stay around for the meeting. He went to try to chew my boss out. It didn't work, and the meeting went off with no problems, and it ended the issue with the design department. I only stayed at that job for about a year until my boss recommended me for a better job, lead safety at a different company. I stayed with them until last year when I decided to do my own thing. Entitled mother thinks her son gets a free birthday cake just because it's his birthday. This happened a few years ago. My family and I were eating at a restaurant and were simply amused onlookers and weren't involved in the whole incident. We were seated in an area of the restaurant that had 4 moderately sized tables, 3 of which were occupied by my family, a nice family and an entitled family. We were all in close enough proximity that we could easily hear what was being discussed at the other tables. The days before lockdown. And I learned that it was the daughter of the nice family's birthday. I think she must have been either 5 or 6. The birthday girl's parents had handed over a birthday cake to the restaurant servers before being seated earlier on to surprise her after eating their main meal. And so a few servers brought the cake out while singing happy birthday to the girl and had lit the candles for her, and the kid was adorable and super happy. Now, the cake looked like a kid's sugary dream come true. It was super colorful and looked delicious. Unfortunately, the kid on the entitled family's table also thought the cake looked delicious and was eyeing it like a hungry little gremlin. The entitled mother spoke up to one of the servers after they had all finished singing happy birthday and said, "Excuse me, it's my son's birthday. Are you gonna bring us our birthday cake?" Now, her son must have been a little older, like 8 or 9, and I don't know this for sure, but from the brief confusion turned mischief on his face, I'm going to assume it wasn't actually his birthday. The poor waitress looks puzzled and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, we were only given 1 cake earlier. What's your name, and do you remember who you gave the cake to?" The entitled mother looks at her like she's grown a second head and snaps, "What are you talking about? It's my son's birthday, and he deserves a free birthday cake just as much as that girl does." At this point, me and my sister both understand that this woman thinks the restaurant supplied the birthday cake instead of the family giving it to them beforehand, and we cover our mouths, trying not to laugh at this woman's idiocy. The waitress catches on too and continues to explain politely that the entitled mother has misunderstood the happy birthday celebration that the servers gave the girl on the other table, and this entitled mother looks super upset, probably realizing that she's made herself look like a right idiot. "Well, my son should get a free dessert anyway. It's his birthday." Entitled mother tries to avoid embarrassment by dialing up her entitlement. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we don't offer free desserts here for any reason," the waitress responds. I know full well that in actual fact, the servers sometimes give out very small free desserts on occasion, usually on birthdays, but only when the families are being kind and appreciative. Because my youngest sister once received one. I'm talking like 1 scoop in a little bowl with some sprinkles and some whipped cream. But hey, free dessert. But obviously, I was gonna remain quiet and keep watching this lady embarrass herself. And embarrass herself she did. She started kicking up more of a fuss and throwing a tantrum, and even encouraged her son to make a fuss too. The dad on their table looked like he was thinking about filing for divorce, but otherwise remained silent instead of telling his wife to knock it off. Eventually, the manager was summoned, and this entitled woman proceeded to shout some more until she was told that if she didn't stop shouting, she would be asked to leave. At this point, she had ordered food but hadn't received it yet, and thankfully, she shut up. She kept muttering under her breath about how she was going to leave a bad review and even had the gall to ask the Nice family for some slices of their daughter's cake. Obviously, they said no, especially after seeing how they had treated the poor waitress, and it was super satisfying to see the entitled mother get shot down again. Speaking of cake, what's your favorite flavor of cake in the whole world? Please let us know. I'd do anything for some German chocolate cake right now, or the carrot cake. Have you ever heard of Golden Corral? Give well in advance notice for vacation? You got it. Background. I had graduated with a master's in engineering degree in the USA. As an international student, I had 90 days to find a job or leave the country. So when I received my first job offer in only 2 months, I was very excited and took it to stop the 90-day countdown. The job was paid minimum wage and was several levels below my qualifications as a master's degree holder. During this job, which I had for about 9 months, a few of my vacation requests were denied with the reason given, not enough notice. As this company relied on having inspectors available for emergency projects, the company relied on keeping inspectors employed without pay till a project was called in by a client. They would have inspectors at home without pay rather than them being on vacation. I needed vacation. It was month of October to celebrate my girlfriend's birthday. This time I had wised up and asked for vacation 1.5 weeks earlier. The week I needed vacation, I followed up with my supervisor. He checked with the project manager, who proceeded to tell me the request was denied as I didn't give enough notice and also didn't follow up earlier so they could make arrangements for my replacement. I didn't get the day off to spend with my girlfriend, and she was sad but was mostly okay. But to make up for the birthday, we decided to take a long vacation in December, 2 weeks long to fly to the West Coast. Cue malicious compliance. I filed and sent my December vacation request in October to my supervisor and project manager. I copied the scheduler and a couple of other supervisors in the area who I was assigned to from time to time. I made sure to follow up every week or two till my December vacation. I hardly got any responses, while some responses said it's still far out and they will check when my vacation comes closer. Being sure my plan would work this time, we booked the flight, car, and hotels/Airbnb for our vacation by the end of November. December rolls around. I make sure to check verbally and by text message with my supervisors about my vacation request, and to remind them, I show them the vacation request and the emails I had sent. All of them say they will check, but no one came back to me about the same. By this time, I had been promoted to team leader and would have a direct line of communication with the project manager when I was acting supervisor. I would casually slip inquiries about my vacation in phone conversations and in emails when it related to my vacation timeframe. December 20th, 2 days before vacation, the company was spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on retraining its entire workforce. They scheduled my training during my vacation. Yes, everyone knew trainings were going on, but you didn't get put on the list until and weren't notified until a few days earlier. I reached out to my project manager and informed him about the vacation I was going to take and couldn't attend the training. He was furious, yelling on the phone that he never received my vacation request and I have no option but to attend the training. To which I say I put the request 2 months in advance and that I even emailed him about the same. He mentioned I never followed up and that I cannot take the vacation. I mentioned the follow-up emails, the texts, the over-the-phone conversations, and my follow-ups with other supervisors and the scheduler. He says he will get back with me and hangs up the phone. I immediately open the work laptop and forward the email conversations. I get a call from the scheduler. He was angry as well and says never to assume a vacation request is approved only because you submitted it earlier. To which I mentioned the email from project manager I received in October, which stated, the vacation request needs to be submitted well in advance and needs to be follow-up to be granted. He says my chances of getting the vacation are very slim and I better attend the training as only trained staff will be kept employed. Then he hangs up. I get a call from my project manager about 15 minutes later who's calm by now, asking me to cancel my vacation. My girlfriend by this point was furious and heartbroken at the same time. I assure her we will be going on this vacation even if it means I have to quit my job. She wasn't thrilled with that either, as this would mean the 90-day counter to get a job would resume and we won't be able to enjoy the vacation. To my project manager, I say canceling my vacation means canceling all the flight bookings and all reservations. He goes back in rage mode, saying how unprofessional I was and that I should have never made reservations until the vacation was approved. In my mind, whatever, dude. Last-minute reservations cost too much to afford and are never convenient. He says he will call me back. 30 minutes later, he had made arrangements for my training to be in the next class, which was tomorrow, 2 days until vacation. It was an accommodation, food, travel, everything paid training. I agree, go to the training, get paid for 8 hours of both days of training, free food and everything. Training venue is 150 miles away. They pay us 45 cents per mile. Come back and go on vacation. During the vacation, I get calls from other schedulers and supervisors to show up at some client, which I didn't need to, but I answered, just to get their reactions. Some of them were salty and said they will check with the project manager, that I might have to cut my vacation short. I let them know I'm across the country, and if they're willing to pay for my losses and flight, I would do that. Knowing the company didn't need me that much, I knew they wouldn't go for it. Some of my supervisors told me to enjoy myself and that they would take care of stuff there. I quit in January. I called Karen out on her bluff, only for her to change her mind. This happened in the last few months of the lockdown in Australia last year, when people were able to dine in at restaurants, provided they gave names and contact details. This information was destroyed after 28 days. For the most part, everyone was compliant, but you'd occasionally have a family or a person who did have a problem. I was front of house manager and had just handed in my 2 weeks notice, with it being 2 days from my last day, so my care level was below the ground. Here's a conversation I had with a lady who refused to sign in. Me: awesome. Now are we dining in or taking away? Her: dining in, please. Me: excellent. I'll just have to get you to sign in to the government-mandated tracing form before you sit down. Can I refuse signing that? You can, but unfortunately, you can't dine in at our restaurant as it's a liability and we can get fined. You'll have to take it back home or to a park or something. Her family is already setting up on a table outside. Her: well, you know this whole thing is ridiculous, and this isn't the law. Me: I respect your beliefs, but this is the law, unfortunately, and we have to oblige to it. Karen: well, fine. We'll get takeaway. Pays for the food. Me: excellent. I'm going to have to ask you and your family to remove your belongings from our table and wait in our designated takeaway spot. Her: sure. She proceeds to go and sit down at the table. I wait a couple minutes because, sure, maybe they're packing up, but then everyone else sits down, so I go out to tell them. Me: sorry guys, because you've refused to sign in, you have to remove yourself from our dining area. Karen: we are though. Give us some time. Me: okay. Well, you've been sitting down here for a bit now, and I told you before you sat down, so please get up so I can seat some other people. This is absolutely ridiculous. There is no need to be so rude. I'm not being rude. I'm asking you to oblige to our store rules. You're being so rude right now. Do you want me to take my business somewhere else? Do you want us to leave? Yeah, sure. I'll refund you right now. I take a step towards the point of sale system with the full intent of refunding her. Karen: what? No, my kids are hungry. Don't. I shrugged at her, and I think she got the hint, because almost immediately they moved into the takeaway area. I still find it pretty funny that as soon as I obliged to her threat, she did a 180 and complied. Many more stories where this came from. Am I the jerk for pretending my son's bike was stolen to teach him a lesson? So my son, Tim, 9 male, has a habit of leaving his bike outside when he's done playing with his friends for the day. It feels like my wife and I are constantly telling him to put the bike inside of the garage because it could be easily stolen, and if/when that day comes, we wouldn't simply buy him a new one. He'd have to earn it himself with extra chores and prove himself trustworthy with his belongings. Well, last week as I was leaving for work in the morning, I saw that Tim had left the bike out again. Rather than talking about this for the umpteenth time, I decided to show him that our warnings could actually happen. I threw the bike into the bed of my truck and took it to work with me. Upon finding his bike missing, he was distraught. He called me crying, asking if I had seen it when I left this morning, and I told him no, I didn't see it. Isn't this why we always tell you to put the bike away? I calmed him down and told him that we could make a plan for him to earn a new bike when I got home for the day. After work, I brought the bike back home and told him that I found it abandoned in the neighborhood park and that we got lucky this time but wouldn't always be this lucky in the future, and all seemed well. Later that night, my wife was telling me that it was super lucky that I happened to find the bike, and I told her that I had it the whole time and ran through what happened with her. She looked at me as if I was some kind of a horrible monster. "Why would you put our son through that? And why wouldn't you at least tell me this dumb plan so I could stop you?" she said. It's not like I had planned it out. It was just a spur-of-the-moment decision as I was leaving for work, and she was still asleep. Tim was only missing his bike for a day, and I wasn't giving him that hard of a time about it. Was I the jerk here? For what it's worth, Tim seems to have learned the lesson. The bike's been put away every night ever since. Edit. A lot of you are saying that I should have simply told Tim that we would take the bike away from him for an amount of time. I feel like that's teaching a different lesson entirely. I'm not punishing him for breaking the rule of not putting away the bike. I'm just trying to show him what would happen if he kept leaving it out. I want him to put away his bike because he's afraid of it getting stolen, not because he's afraid his parents will get mad at him and ground him. Hope this clears up some of my mindset. Well, what do you think? Is Dad the jerk for what he did or not? Please let us know. I honestly can't wait to read the comments of what you think about this story. Am I the jerk for not giving my kid's father a portion of my stimulus check money? So I just got my $4,200 stimulus check for me and my 2 kids. My ex-husband also received his $1,400 stimulus check, but has called me to ask if I would give him a cut of mine, since it was money I was receiving for our kids. Not to mention, due to lockdown, he has fallen on hard times, but I am not struggling. I told him no, because I don't feel he deserves it. Now hear me out. The court ordered $251 a month in child support when we got divorced. I asked for the lowest possible amount only because I knew that he didn't make that much, and I make significantly more than him. Right after the divorce was finalized, my mom and I told him that if he was struggling, not to stress about the payments because the girls would always be taken care of, but that he was not absolved of his responsibilities. Obviously, we should not have been so easy on him because he barely made a single payment for 2 years, just some extra cash here and there. Then, recently, he bought a brand new 2021 SUV, and that was a huge slap in the face. So we got tougher with the payments, and now he's been paying the $251 a month for the last 6 months. When I gently explained all this to him, he got defensive because it's not really my money, it's the government's money for our kids, and that he should be entitled to some of it. Then starts to threaten having to go back to court for half custody so that he would get what he's entitled to. So I mentioned to him that he does in fact have half custody. Everything was split completely down the middle, including health insurance, school, and extracurricular activities, which he does not pay for either, because he feels the kids shouldn't need to go to an expensive school and have all these extra activities when he doesn't have the money for them in the first place. I considered that a fair point, since my mom and I do have them involved in a lot of pricey activities, but we have never minded covering that, so that was never thrown in his face. And I should also add that he does not pay for half their insurance or medical bills, but he feels that because my family and I are more well off than him, that I should be giving him part of my stimulus check. When I asked him what he needed it for, he said to just have on hand in case he needs it. This is where I don't know if I'm being too controlling, but I told him, today and many times before, that if he is ever struggling, I will gladly help him. If he's short on groceries or needs to go to the doctor, etc., I have no problem helping him. But he doesn't want that help. He just wants some of my stimulus money to have on hand and then accused me of being controlling because I only want to help him in the ways that I want to help, not how he wants it. So, am I the jerk? My head is spinning from all this BS. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her ex? Please let us know. I just have one question. Where on earth did you find this guy? Am I the jerk for telling my cousin what she was eating? This happened in 2019, but has recently been brought back up, hence my post. Necessary background. I'm half French, my dad, half American, my mom. When I was 11, my family moved from the States to France. I lived there during the school year and spent summers back in the US. Growing up, I had a cousin, Jane, who I was never very close with. When I moved to France, she was outwardly jealous at first, but then started using it to brag to her friends because it meant she got to visit us there pretty often. We don't live in Paris, but Jane was always telling people about how she went to Paris all the time. When we got older, the bragging stopped because they didn't visit as much, and she became hostile towards me. I cut contact and figured that was the end of it. In autumn 2019, I got married in France and invited all my American family. Husband and I live near a small castle that's rented out, so we paid for my family to stay there since there isn't enough room at the house. Jane was invited because I didn't think it would be right to exclude her when her siblings were coming. In France, in the autumn, there's a huge culture of going mushrooming. We went as a family and everyone loved it except Jane. She spent the whole time complaining and making nasty comments. When my mother-in-law and I were making dinner for everyone using the mushrooms we had picked, Jane came into the kitchen and said, "Wow, I didn't realize you were so poor that you had to eat stuff you picked off of the forest floor." And then she walked out. I was so ashamed, but also so thankful my mother-in-law doesn't speak a lot of English. She ate around the mushrooms at dinner and kept making disgusted faces. A few days later, we went to a nice restaurant for dinner. Jane ordered a dish with the same mushrooms she had been disgusted by, but since this was an expensive restaurant, she wouldn't shut up about how incredible the food was, how the mushrooms were so much better than anything you could get in the States, and how she couldn't wait to go to the market to buy some. So I told her she wouldn't have needed to buy any if she had participated more in the mushrooming, since they were the same, but we got ours for free. When I said that, she completely stopped eating her meal and refused to interact with me for the rest of the trip. There was a huge rift in the family because she left the day before the wedding and spent the rest of her time in Paris. My aunt was furious that I had publicly insulted Jane and was very cold to me for the rest of their time here. Recently, we've been wanting to plan a family reunion for when things are safe, but my aunt is saying she and Jane wouldn't come after how I treated her. Am I the jerk for my comment? Of course you're not the jerk. Tell your aunt and Jane that you weren't going to be inviting them anyway. Karen demands I edit her music videos without being paid. I end her career instead. I, female 20, have picked up a few skills over the lockdown since there was a lot of staying at home. One of the skills is video editing, like After Effects and Premiere. I had a fair share of hours learning and improving these things and learning from tutorials. Well, a friend of mine heard that I edit, saw a few of my fandom edits, liked them, and wanted me to edit a music video she made. She wanted to send it to one of those music companies and release it. The video was around 3 minutes and 20 seconds long and mostly done outside, so I knew it would take a lot of work correcting everything so it looks pretty. She told me she wanted it done like a fandom edit. I agreed since I cut videos for friends a lot. Well, in the middle, I realized it was way more work than I expected. I think even the first 20 seconds took me about 4 to 5 hours or so. So at some point, I asked her for pay, like €4 an hour since I'm not a professional, and I was still a lot on the side. She said no, she doesn't have money. I felt the no money part and told her she doesn't have to worry. Well, at some point, I just finished the thing. I felt bad because it was obvious I put more effort into the beginning than in the rest. But I do have a real full-time job, so I sacrificed a few of my weekends for this. She was livid and told me to redo the last part. I agreed to redo the point she wanted. This happened a few more times, then I asked her to go in Discord for me so she can tell me what was wrong. She declined since she doesn't know anything about this stuff. At this point, my boyfriend got to know about all of this and told me to cut it off, discussed it, and in the end, I told her I wouldn't do any more work for her. And if she wants something done, she should hire someone professional. She called me crying and told me that I need to finish this. It's the most important thing in her life. I was done with this at this point and hung up. I went to the computer and deleted all versions of the video I had at Dropbox and at my desk since I was so angry. Well, turned out she didn't save any of the video, only the raw cut from the beginning. She tried to reach me through my friend and I said I deleted it and my phone blew up. Messages from Instagram came in insulting me, and they even reported my edit account. It's still there luckily, but I was checked from Instagram. I later heard the company wasn't interested in her. My boyfriend said I shouldn't feel bad. My friend said she was crappy, but I shouldn't have deleted everything. And the other said I owe her because I agreed to do it and that I'm the worst. I do realize that I shouldn't have deleted the videos, but I kinda don't feel 100% like the jerk since she didn't save anything. Only maybe 80%. So, am I the jerk? Update. Thank you for all the replies. I read through all of them. Thanks to your help, I was able to recover the video, and our mutual friend now has it in her cloud. She'll tell her I apologized. She blocked me for deleting my edit and that she can have them for future projects. And with that, we're both done with this. Thanks everyone for the discussion and the tips you all gave me. I took them to heart. Have a nice night. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their friend? Please let us know.
Bruh, why did you recover it and give it to her? Sorry, but your friend's a total Karen.
Am I the jerk for saying it's not my problem that some of my friends chose bad husbands and I'm not going to punish mine because of it? To start off, we need to go to the before times, before lockdown times, about 6 or 7 years ago. Right after my husband and I got married, he would always have guys' night on Friday night. I'd always have ladies' afternoon Saturday afternoon. This continued until we had kids. It didn't stop. No, we just waited a few months until the kids could stand to be away from one parent for half a day, then the other on the next. Yes, both of us kept our day off because my husband is an actual attentive, good father and a good husband. Once my lady friends started having kids, they'd join in on our afternoon less and less, and more sporadically. Yes, their husbands, well, the ones that had a night, had guys' nights, still went almost every week though. When the lockdown started, all of them mentioned, in our Zoom chats or text chats, etc., how nice it was to finally have more help around the house. The same thing I've had since day one, but I didn't want to brag, so I mostly kept quiet. Now with the rollout, and over half of my friends, as well as myself and my husband, having got it, everyone is starting to talk about getting back into their normal hangouts, and some have already started. Since many of my friends have gotten used to having an attentive father for their kids for the first time ever, a lot of them are trying to stop everything from going back to normal. So now they are trying, and mostly succeeding, to get our wives group to agree to tell their husbands we all want their guys' night out to end, so things won't go back to how they were before. Thing is though, I am 100% against that for my husband. He's a great dad. He deserves a break. He makes sure I get my weekly break too, when it's safe anyway. Plus, I love our mommy-only Fridays that I get with my babies, just as he does his daddy-only Saturday afternoons. And beyond that, like I said, I already had a good husband and my kids already had an attentive dad. We don't need a lockdown to get things right. Even most of the women that have good husbands are agreeing to this to present a unified front, and because some of them don't trust their husbands with a guy's night, even if he is otherwise good. They keep trying to pressure me into joining, but like I said, I like how my life was before lockdown. I like our balance. I like us both getting some downtime. So I kinda snapped. I got sick of their pressuring and said, "Look, I get it. You messed up at picking a husband and a father for your kids, and now the only way to get him to be a good one is to force him. I don't have that problem. I actually chose a good guy. He was an A+ dad and husband long before lockdown. I'm not going to punish him for your mistakes." Most of them are mad at me, but I did get a couple of agreements. It's looking like going forward, my ladies' afternoons are going to be a lot smaller, and frankly, I'm okay with that. But I am worried I may have gone about this the wrong way or even inadvertently made some lives worse. Edit. I have tried more politely telling them no before. Stuff like, "What we have is working for us," and "Gosh, I'm sorry you feel the need to do that. Guess I'm lucky that I don't." They wouldn't stop pressuring me to change my mind until I snapped. Edit 2. My husband doesn't really hang out with most of my friends' husbands. Sorry, I should have made it clearer. He doesn't want our kids to see him with the type of men who are absent fathers. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her friends? Please let us know.
You're better off without them, OP. They sound like a bunch of Karens, to be honest.
New manager judges someone on how they look. Unexpected ending. This actually happened to a friend of my stepfather's. The woman in the story is a wonderful, down-to-earth woman who just so happens to be extremely wealthy and owns a lot of local businesses and has a heavy involvement in them. However, doesn't dress like she has money. Pam was out and about one day shopping before an important business meeting and decided to head inside early. Pam had walked in to speak to old manager about the yearly takings and new hires. She was dressed down as usual, however her hair, occasional makeup were always impeccable. Plus, the huge diamond studs in her ears should have been a huge giveaway. New manager was a new hire and had, in the interviews, and seemed on paper a perfect fit. Apart from thinking a little too highly of herself and slightly snooty attitude. However, this was common for this area and the younger generation, so old manager decided to give her a go and hired her. So Pam walks in, early for the meeting, and begins browsing like she always does, taking in the aesthetics of the shop, the atmosphere, etc. just waiting for the old manager. New manager sees this and gives Pam a dirty side-eye glance. Pam is checking prices, moving items back to where they should be, etc. And obviously, new manager finds this strange. New manager runs over looking annoyed, shouting at Pam to stop touching the products, that they're obviously well out of her price range and they do not allow people in to just browse. She rips the product out of Pam's hands, insisting that she should not be in the store. She's definitely not the type of client they cater for, and she must leave.
You're putting off real customers,
she said. Pam just stares at the new manager, wide-eyed and open-mouthed, while the new manager is attempting to hustle Pam towards the outside door. Pam, without saying a word, shoves off new manager and storms past her, through the back and into the back office. New manager runs after her, screaming that she definitely can't be back there, and that if she doesn't leave, she will call the police and she, Pam, will be arrested. At this point, other staff members, some who know Pam, have tried explaining to new manager, but can't over her screaming, and customers are just standing there watching all of this unfold. When new manager makes it into the office, she finds Pam on the office phone just starting a conversation. New manager screams again that Pam cannot be back there, all the while grabbing for the office phone. A few moments later, old manager rushes into the back office, mobile phone in hand and a shocked expression on her face. New manager doesn't see this and again screams at Pam that she can't be back there and that she, new manager, is going to call the police and have Pam arrested. Pam has had enough now and shouts, "What? You'll have me arrested from a store that I own?" Pam attempts to shout over new manager screaming. She hadn't noticed old manager run in, went as follows. "Old manager, can you please calm this girl down, explain to her who I am, why I'm here, and please tell me what in the world you were thinking when you took her on?" With this, new manager suddenly pipes down and looks around. She heard what Pam had said, but it obviously took a few minutes to process. Old manager is standing open-mouthed like a goldfish gasping for air, while Pam, as cool as a cucumber, turns to make herself a coffee. Old manager suddenly remembers how to breathe and speak and chokes out. New manager: "This is Pam, our owner and landlord. This whole row of shops belongs to her, and she has come in today to go over the yearly takings and to help review the new hires we've taken on." Pam has a very active role in her business. Although she's not always seen by all staff, she is heavily involved in everything that is done and every decision made. This makes her a great owner and businesswoman, as she knows everything that goes on within her companies, and she's always fair. Now it was new manager's turn to be wide-eyed and open-mouthed. Pam sat down in the office chair, coffee in hand, and smiled at old manager. "Come sit," she said to old manager and patted a chair next to her. "I think we will start with new manager's review first. Don't you think, old manager?" Now Pam was never a lady to raise her voice. To be honest, she didn't need to. When she spoke, there was a certain air of authority about her, usually twinged with kindness and smiles. Not today, however. Pam simply explained that the one thing she hated most in this world was being treated differently. To her, it didn't matter if you had but a penny or £1,000,000, she would still treat you the same. That was the motto of her business, and this girl had gone against everything she believed in. Everything her and her husband had worked so hard for all these years. This was truly unacceptable and would not be tolerated. Who knows how many potential customers she had chased away just because of how they looked. So it's safe to say new manager lost her job, and after everyone in the community had heard about who she was, what she had done, and how she had treated Pam, no one wanted to employ her as a manager or anything else. Yes, Pam and her husband were extremely wealthy, but it was all hard work and effort that got them there, and they would never have done it without the people who had been there for them when they started out with nothing. They never forgot who they were or where they came from, and always treated everyone they met with kindness and compassion. Act like a jerk in the middle seat? Get arrested. After seeing another post about a middle seat jerk, it reminded me of what happened back in 2004, and this is unintentional pro-revenge on my part. This happened on a flight back after dropping my mother-in-law off at home. She was in her 80s and didn't like flying alone, so whenever she visited with my wife and me, I ended up flying down to pick her up and flying back with her to take her home. I liked earning the miles, plus I enjoyed it a lot because I genuinely adored my mother-in-law. Anyway, I had the aisle seat, which I always book, and the guy in the middle seat, who was there before me, refused to move his leg and kept his arm on the armrest. I got in my seat, but he's really pushing back hard. It feels like he's basically trying to take over the entire row. I'm pushing back too, but refuse to continue to this entire flight, even though it's barely a 75-minute flight. As the flight attendant walked by prior to liftoff, I purposely commented loud enough for her to hear, "Dude, stop trying to play footsie with me. I'm not interested." He got all flustered and moved a little bit, though not a lot. Fast forward to just after takeoff. Seatbelt sign is turned off and they're getting ready to serve drinks. Now he's spreading out again, but even more than before. I unhooked my belt and jumped out of my seat and yelled at him to stop touching me. FA and the air marshal rush up to me as quickly as they could to see what's going on, while he's trying to form words. I tell them he keeps rubbing his leg against me and won't stop even after I tell him to. Before this guy could respond, the passenger in the window seat says he's rubbing up against him too. He gets taken out of the middle seat, protesting the whole time. He sat down in a jump seat with the marshal next to him. The FA comes back to me and the guy by the window and offers us a free drink for our inconvenience. We both accept gladly. Free beer is always a good thing. About 20 minutes before the flight is supposed to land, the marshal comes back to me and asks if I wanted to press charges. I seriously thought about doing it, but said no. I'm just glad he's not next to me and pushing up against me. The guy in the window seat said the same, and we figured that was that. After the flight landed and we had exited the plane, I see the middle seat guy in cuffs and a couple of cops talking to the FA. The air marshal saw me standing there and walked over to me. I asked him what happened. She said the guy started calling the flight attendant all kinds of names, and she was pressing charges against him because he did make a threat of harm. He asked me again if I wanted to press charges, and again, I told him no. The guy's already in enough trouble. As I walked away, I looked at the idiot and started laughing. Maybe next time he'll just move. I didn't want him arrested. I just wanted him to stop being a jerk. He's the one who decided to make it worse for himself. Edit to clarify. This wasn't an arm wrest fight, though he certainly took those over. He kept spreading his legs wider, pushing up against me. Also, I asked the guy to make some room before I sat down, but got ignored. Have you ever had to sit next to someone on a plane who is a complete jerk? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
Maybe the guy was just cold. Nothing like snuggling up for warmth. Isn't that right, Mr. Reddit?
Get away from me. Am I the jerk for not getting my nephew another tablet after his was stolen? I, 38 male, helped my sister-in-law take care of my 12-year-old nephew/godson Aaron since he was a baby. He spends a few days out of the week with me, and I help pay for clothes, school stuff, birthdays, and whatever else she needs help with. So yes, pretty much his second parent. She lets me discipline him, and I have a very active role in his life. This last Christmas, I got him a tablet. He doesn't have many electronics aside from his cell phone, which his mom pays for. At my place, he uses my work laptop if he needs it for school or uses his mom's computer when he's with her. Aaron was excited about this gift, but I did give him some conditions for keeping it. Obviously, maintain good grades in school, keep up with his chores, and I made it very clear he's not to take it with him to school at all. Because if he broke or lost it, I would not buy him another one. Aaron swore he'd take good care of it. This week, my sister-in-law told me someone stole Aaron's tablet. Why? Because he brought the darn thing to school with him. She said his teacher told her Aaron took it out during recess so him and his friends could watch videos. Aaron stays for an after-school program, and that's when it was likely stolen since it wasn't in his backpack after that. She's speaking with the school to find out what they can do about this, but it's very unlikely anything will come of it with so many kids, and obviously none of them are going to say who stole it. Aaron has been upset, and I already had a talk with him about breaking one of the conditions. However, he's begging me to buy him another one, and he swears he won't do it again now that he knows better. But I told him no, and the only way he'll have a tablet again is if his old one is returned or someone else gets it for him, because I'm not buying another. He cried after we talked and shut himself in his room. My sister-in-law is asking me to change my mind because he really enjoyed having that tablet, and this should be punishment enough. I still said no, since he knew these would be the consequences of taking it to school. Now I'm being called a jerk by my mom and my other sister because they know I could easily afford another one, but sister-in-law can't. Neither can they, since money is also very tight with them. They think I'm being too hard on him for making this mistake, and Aaron is already so upset. I'm finding it hard to see how I am when this was our agreement and don't know why I'm being made the jerk for keeping my word on this. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you buy him another tablet or not? Please let us know.
I'd give him some more chores and allowance and help him set up a savings plan so he can buy his own. Sometimes we appreciate things even more when we're the ones who have to pay for them.
I asked for 3 days off. They asked for a doctor's note. So I have way more than 3 days off. Hello, Reddit. I lurk a lot and realized I had my own malicious compliance story a few weeks ago. My job is very mentally taxing. I also have my own mental health issues, so I try my best to balance. But I just want to help, so I get caught up taking more responsibilities than I am actually able to. So a couple of weeks ago, I realized my mental health is in steep decline. I was ignoring the signs to push through, but anyone with mental health issues knows that you can only imagine the signs for so long. I tried to get ahead of a mental crash and talk to my supervisor to tell them that I need 3 days off, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And as I had the weekend off after the days I requested, I figured that might be enough to get a good rest and reset. I did tell my supervisor why I needed the days, burnout, mental health, and they said they understood and would get back to me. They contact me back. I say they because right now I technically have 2 supervisors running my division, and say they can probably give me Wednesday and Thursday, but that they couldn't give me Friday. I ask if we can do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday instead, and I could work the Friday, have my long weekend, and that should still be fine. They say they will get back to me. I get a text soon after to ask me to help cover other shifts, and I obviously can't, so I decline. They get back to me the next day. We can get your shifts covered for Wednesday and Thursday, but not Tuesday, and you have to make up the hours. That was the straw. I just broke. I was asking for a break because I was working too much, because it was hard for me to say no. I even called them, they had me on speaker, in tears, and explain even further why I need the days. I've been going through therapy and my mental health has been declining. I had told them that I had spoken to my doctor and that my doctor said I was showing signs of burnout and recommended some days off, which is true, as I had talked to him the day before. All they heard was doctor and said, "We need a doctor's note." Okay, fine. Good thing I have another appointment. I had to work that day just defeated because they couldn't find anyone to cover my shifts. I talked to my doctor and he says that he can tell I'm in distress and he puts me on 2 weeks of leave immediately. They did not look pleased when I handed in my doctor's note. That was 2 weeks ago. I went back to the doctor and he extended my leave for at least another month. Cause, straw broke the camel's back and my mental health just went down the drain. Oh, also, when I gave them my doctor's note with 4 weeks on it, one of them wouldn't even look at me and the other just said, "Oh, doctor's note, thanks." Edit 1. Holy barnacles, this blew up. I thank everyone for all of their support. Also, for all those asking, no, I'm not in America, and I was able to apply for sickness benefits. Edit 2. I can't thank everyone enough for the support. It is immensely encouraging. My husband has been reading your lovely comments. I wish I could reply to them all. For everyone having their own struggles and still being so kind, it's very appreciated, and I'm hoping everyone gets what they need to recover/get better. Am I the jerk for returning my neighbor's packages that keep getting delivered to my house? Me, female 39, and my partner, male 42, bought a house a year ago. The way that the property is set up is that my house is in the front by the street, while my neighbor's house is more set back into the woods. We each have a separate driveway and mailbox. Ours is to the right and theirs is to the left. The neighbor's driveway is very long, and without the mailbox indicating there was a house there, you would probably mistake it for a road instead. About 3 days after we moved into the house, we started getting packages for our neighbor. We would always take them down to their house, but told them that they may want to let the delivery services know they were leaving them at the wrong house. The neighbors apologized and said they would take care of it. Our concern is that since my partner and I both work outside of the home, if something valuable was delivered and it got stolen or damaged, we did not want to be held responsible for it. It has now been a year since we moved into the house and packages are still getting delivered to our house. We have spoken to the neighbors on an almost weekly basis to tell them that we are not a post office and to please contact these companies and let them know they're delivering to the wrong house. 2 weeks after the last delivery, I came home from work to yet another package for the neighbors. So the next day, I went to work late and went to the post office and returned it to sender with a note that they keep delivering to the wrong house. 3 days after I returned the box to sender, my neighbors started banging on the door asking where their package was. I told them that I returned it to the sender with a note that it was delivered to the wrong house. My neighbor was furious and told me I had no right to do that I could have just walked it to their house like we always do. My partner interrupted and told her that we have told her repeatedly to let these companies know they're delivering it to the wrong house, that we are not her personal package couriers, and that since this was our property, that yes, we did have the right to return them because they do not belong to us. Now this neighbor is blasting us to all the other neighbors, telling them that we're stealing her packages. She even posted to our neighborhood page that we are thieves. I responded to her post with pictures of the box we returned to sender that showed the notes that it was delivered to the wrong house, so that helped to clear up some of the issues. However, she will not stop. Am I the jerk for returning my neighbor's packages that keep getting delivered to my house? Edit. For everyone asking, I did not put this in the post as I was afraid I would break the character limit. 1. We've texted our neighbor to come get the package, but they would leave them there for at least a day or two before coming to get them, and we were tired of them being on the porch, so we would take them over to just get rid of them. 2. We have left the packages by their mailbox, but got nasty text messages about how the stuff could have been stolen because the mailbox is right next to the road. 3. We did send our neighbor a text message that told them both that if the packages continued to get delivered to our house, that they would be returned, and they never responded to the message. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you return the packages to the sender or keep walking them over to your neighbor's house? Please let us know.
Darn straight I would return to sender. Maybe that neighbor will be a little more considerate of your time now.
Entitled mom loses it when I block her daughter on social media. So, this was this morning and I am a bit upset. My ex-friend decided to block me on all social media because of a text message stream we had back in November of last year. I'll try to rewrite it here. Also, we're both 14, if that clarifies anything. Friend. So I like other friend's name. How about you? Me. I like you. Friend blocks me. Now I'm confused and I asked her friends why she did that. They all say it's because she hates me for putting her on the spot like that. For the rest of middle school, she bullied me and got her friends to as well whenever they saw me. During quarantine, I guess she unblocked me because I got a text from her saying, "Hey, I'm sorry about what I did. Can we be friends?" I thought about this for a bit, and I hate being rude to people, so I just said sure. Now her friends at golf think we're dating. She calls me names like Boo and Babe, even though I have asked her not to. This was my final text message with her. Me. I don't understand why you're calling me this. We aren't dating. Friend. Yes, we are. You asked me out when you accepted my friendship again. Me. I never meant it that way, and if you think that, then I'm breaking up with you. Friend. You can't do that. I'll choose when we're over. Me. All right. Bye. I block her. A few days later, or this morning, I get a knock on my door. I open it to see friend bawling with her mother entitled Mom. Me. May I ask why you're here? Entitled Mom. How dare you break up with my daughter? Me. We weren't even dating.
Yes, you were, you little jerk. You're such a jerk for ruining my daughter's life.
At this point, I start to close the door, knowing I won't get anywhere by talking to them when the entitled mom juts her foot out to keep the door open. She is significantly larger than me, so she can easily overpower me and manages to get into the house. Me. Get out of my house! Entitled Mom. I won't leave until you agree to date my daughter again. I pull out my phone and call the cops while trying to make sure entitled Mom doesn't go anywhere. I was home alone, so my parents couldn't exactly help, considering they were at work. About 15 minutes later of arguing, the police arrive and start asking questions. Officer. What seems to be the problem? Entitled Mom.
He attacked me.
Me. Actually, she broke into the house and demanded I date her daughter. Officer. Ma'am, please step outside.
No, this little jerk needs to date my daughter.
The police officer was chill the whole time and eventually got her off my property. I still have friend blocked and haven't heard from them yet. I haven't pressed charges and it seems to have mellowed out. I'll update if anything happens. Edit. For everyone saying to press charges, we decided against it. She doesn't have a great life, the dad is out of the picture, and we don't want to make it worse. Thanks for all the support though. Most of y'all have given positive feedback, and I thank the nice people for that. We are, however, going for a restraining order, and I'll update when that happens. Have you ever had to block anyone on social media? If so, what was it for? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for ruining dinner by telling the table next to ours to talk about something else? Me and my boyfriend went on a double date with my brother and his girlfriend. At the restaurant, the table closest to us began discussing a sensitive topic that is extremely and personally upsetting to my boyfriend. They were talking loud enough that it was impossible not to hear them. I know him well enough to know he would not react well, and sure enough, he started to look upset and left to use the restroom. He texted me and confirmed he was very bothered and said I should text him so he could come back when they stopped. While he was away, I went over to the table and told them it was a very sensitive topic for my boyfriend and asked them to please be mindful of who was around them and asked if they could discuss something else. They didn't say much to me, but changed the topic after I sat back down, so I told my boyfriend to come back. At this point, the dinner seemed like it could be salvaged. But when my boyfriend returned, after about 10 minutes, they started to talk about it again and began making dark jokes. My boyfriend excused himself again, and I became very angry and walked over to tell them how inconsiderate they were being. This time, it was more heated, and they talked back to me and then called for the manager. The manager told me to please leave the other guests alone or we would have to leave. I texted my boyfriend to explain and asked if he wanted to leave, and he said he did, so we left. My brother and his girlfriend said I was being ridiculous and apologized to the manager and the other table for the disruption. They stayed. My brother later told me that he and his girlfriend were so embarrassed by my behavior that they will not be going out to dinner with us again because we can't handle other people. Edit. I know this was an unpleasant situation for them, but it was unpleasant for me and my boyfriend too. Did I handle this wrong? What do you think? Did OP handle this right or wrong? Please let us know. I'm kicking out my Karen sister. I'm a 30-year-old male who has been living with my sister for over a year. After our grandfather passed and left an inheritance to my mother and stepfather, they elected to move to Spain where they had met originally. This left them in a predicament as my sister was living with them at the time and didn't want to move to Spain. I was asked whether I would be prepared to allow my sister to live with me, providing a number of conditions were met. A. That rent was paid to cover some of the living expenses. B. That the responsibility for her 2 cats rested solely with her, meaning that the purchase of cat food, cat litter, and changing cat litter and food was all with her. C. That a conscious effort would be made to find a job which would facilitate her living independently over time. I work a full-time job as a senior manager within a company, which means that most weekdays I leave the house around 6:30 a.m. and return home around 6 or 6:30 p.m., sometimes later. Since I pay for 95% of the household costs on a monthly basis, I made the argument that she should take the burden of the household chores, like cleaning up, hoovering, doing the dishes, etc. We live in a small 2-bedroom flat, so the scale of the work isn't so great that it couldn't be spread over a number of days. I have also been in a relationship with my girlfriend for over 3 years, and we have consistently agreed that we both want to move in together. However, she doesn't want to live with me and my sister. She wants to live with me. That's a fair comment, and I agree with that sentiment. Unfortunately, in the years since my sister has lived with me, we seem to have argued more and more because she thinks I'm being taken advantage of and have got very little support from my family in general. She has taken no responsibility for any of the household chores and spends the majority of her time isolated in her bedroom. I found out that she has posted images on Instagram of a certain nature and explained to my parents that I find it frustrating that she would post pictures of this nature but doesn't seem to have given much consideration to finding a job or contributing in some way. I was told that there was nothing that they could do and that I should talk to my sister. In the past, these conversations have descended into tears and I've backed away from my argument in order to make peace. I was then sent a text message from my sister telling me that it was none of my business, that she had been looking for a job, that she wanted to focus on her business, etc. I grew furious with that response and told her, aggressively I will admit, I wanted her out of my house and that she had until the end of the week to move out. I told her that I was tired of accommodating her lifestyle and being made to feel like my goodwill had been taken advantage of. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for kicking his sister out or not? Please let us know. Demand we work overtime for free? Enjoy having no employees. I was reminded of this story due to the recent passing of the hero of this story. Grumpy, you will be missed. I met Grumpy in an addiction recovery program. He volunteered there after they helped him and he became my sponsor. Seeing that I was trying to get my life together, he offered me my first job out of high school. Grumpy was the manager of a store for a company that sold everything you needed to build a house, from cement and bricks to custom-made cupboards. I started as a loader, filling the trucks that were making deliveries. A little background for the company. It plays an important role later. When they started, back in the early 80s, They sold everything you needed to build a brick-and-mortar home wholesale to professionals. During their first expansion, they got a really good reputation for their prices of power tools, custom cupboards, and landscaping, including custom-made garden furniture. The stores were basically big warehouses. In the mid-90s, they opened their doors to the general public, which, accompanied by a rising tint of do-it-yourself, skyrocketed their sales. They brought a second, smaller wave of expansion and the opening of the online store, first only with phone orders and later on with a proper site. When I joined, they were doing a third shift on their business plan. They had cut down on things that weren't big sellers, like bricks and concrete, and were focusing more on the big sellers, custom-made furniture, landscaping, tools, and for some weird reason, plumbing. My first 8 months on the job was a dream. Grumpy was an excellent manager. Having started in the company roughly the same age I was and being promoted through the ranks, had developed a very distinct managerial style. His concept was simple. If my employees are happy, they work better and provide better services, which leads to better sales. That meant that while Grumpy managed one of the inner city stores, meaning medium to small size compared to others, we were fourth in revenue nationwide and first in customer happiness. And then the reason for his nickname stroke. While everyone called him Grumpy, a nickname he was kind of proud of, he was far from it. The reason was he had a medical condition that affected his nerves and had him left with a permanent frown on his face. He had declined promotion due to that condition, knowing the extra stress would make his condition flare up, meaning he wouldn't be as effective as he would like. His medical condition flared up unexpectedly, and Grumpy had to be hospitalized and be on sick leave for a time. HQ decided to not have one of Grumpy's assistants be an acting manager for the duration, but bring in a regional manager to take over the store for the duration. Let's call him Wilhelm. Wilhelm was the exact opposite of Grumpy. He was younger than Grumpy. He was in his late 20s. Grumpy was in his late 30s. He had a business degree, and he hadn't worked the floor at all. He was hired from the beginning as an office drone and climbed his way to regional manager. The reason he was put in charge of our store had to do with the change of the business plan of the company. You see, the change of focus had created a lot of empty spaces in the stores. A supermarket chain had approached the company with an offer to rent the empty space, especially for inner city stores. The company had accepted and placed regional managers in key stores to help with integration. The thing is, the supermarket chain had a reputation of being bad employers. That was reinforced by one of our tellers, who had worked for them for 3 years before quitting to join us. Wilhelm didn't help also. His managerial style was based on only one concept: make more money in any way possible. He started by changing our schedule from monthly to weekly, raising the sales targets to unrealistic heights, and always demanded more. In the first 2 weeks, 6 experienced people had left, 4 quit, and 2 were fired, and replaced by young, inexperienced people that were easier to manipulate. And then the integration happened. The floor was the first to feel the problem. The supermarket opened its doors and was understaffed. Wilhelm started sending people over to help for 4 to 6 hours, while also demanding to work their regular shifts. If someone declined, he or she was written up. 2 write-ups in 6 months and you were fired. Then Wilhelm came to lay the law in the loading bay. The loading bay was shared between the 2 stores. Wilhelm declared that we had to first help the 2 guys of the supermarket unload their trucks because their products were perishable, and then start loading our own trucks. That would throw our delivery schedule to the wind. The loading crew worked from 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. We loaded first the trucks that had longer to travel, so they will be ready to leave at 7 at the latest. The company had a next-day delivery policy for a 150-mile radius. What Wilhelm declared meant we couldn't start loading our trucks before 7:30, and they couldn't start their route before 9:30. We said as much, but Wilhelm didn't care. He said we had to do both jobs. When someone inquired about overtime, Wilhelm said no. He said we already made too much money with unsocial hours, 5 to 8, and leaving early, so he wouldn't approve overtime. So, from a nice environment that you wanted to work for, we all started getting miserable. We lost 10 people in the loading crew in a month because of the new rules. The new hires didn't last long. The floor was a mess also, started turning personnel fast. Anyone who is staying is either looking for another job, is afraid of unemployment, or is too young to know better. The sales had a very small decline, but customer happiness is plummeting fast. After almost 6 months, all the old guard that was left was ready to quit. But our savior came back. Almost 6 months from the day he was hospitalized, Grumpy walks into the store to claim his rightful position. He isn't a knight in shining armor, riding a pure white horse, carrying a legendary sword. He's in normal attire, slightly limping and holding a cane. We have a welcome back party and have a small glimmer of hope now that he's back. We are informed that Grumpy will be on light duty for 2 weeks before he becomes the manager again. Despite Grumpy being back, Wilhelm still remains the regional manager, which means he outranks Grumpy and will make it very clear in private meetings with all of us. If he caught us complaining to Grumpy, we were as good as gone. Still, a few of us are planning to have a meeting with Grumpy after the weeks, letting him get his sea legs back. But another department had other ideas. During his reign of terror, the only department that Wilhelm couldn't control was the workshop. He knew that if he treated them as bad as he did to us, they would quit, and the sales would go from a small decline to bottom of the barrel real quick. As I said, custom-made furniture was the #1 seller. So the head carpenter has a meeting with Grumpy on his second day talking about the future of the workshop. In reality, the guy spilled the beans on Wilhelm. With the pretext of catching up with the changes, Grumpy has meetings with everyone, learning what Wilhelm has done and why we had so many new staff. You could feel he was getting angrier with every meeting. He had also had an eye-opening meeting with the manager of the supermarket. Finally, the time had come that he is the manager again. The revenge. On his first day back as manager, Grumpy notifies everyone of a mandatory meeting after the store is closed. He has a solution. So gather in the store after closing hours, and Grumpy lays out the plan. For the next couple of days, nobody except him is coming to the store. If anyone calls us, we should direct them to him, which we did. When we started getting calls about the store being closed, Grumpy's answer to the headquarters was simple. The staff was working on a second job during their shifts, which is a breach of contract, so I had to fire them all and find new staff. That caught headquarters' attention, because nothing of that sort was reported in the last 6 months. They asked Grumpy for evidence, which he happily provided with our written testimonies, which brought a crapstorm on Wilhelm. You see, Wilhelm had an arrangement with the supermarket manager. He got a kickback from our unpaid labor for the supermarket, and the manager offered the same thing to Grumpy. He also included that Wilhelm regularly declined to sign overtime, which meant that if any one of us went to the labor department, the company would get a really huge fine. The aftermath. Wilhelm quickly got fired. We all received calls to interview with the company for an open position. We all received severance pay for our firing, plus most of the unpaid overtime, about 80% of it. Almost all of us went back to work with a small pay raise based on experience. The company took a long, hard look at the supermarket chain and distanced themselves from them. They stayed until their lease was over, but no shared employees anymore, and a lot of theirs jumped ship to our side. Next time Grumpy had to take time off, one of his assistants took over. 2 did a stellar job, leading to being promoted to managers in other stores. Grumpy brought back his usual managerial style, leading again to a rise of sales and customer happiness. I left the job 3 years later for a better paying position, but I still remember Grumpy as one of the best managers I ever had. Have you ever had a manager who stuck up for you? If so, how exactly did they do it? Please let us know.
My co-host sure doesn't stick up for me, I'll tell you that.
Take all of the tools? Okay, will do, boss. This is an older story. I just remembered it again. I was working as a cleaner on a construction site, and the boss man, Bob, didn't like me because I was a young woman in a man's world. He was an old and bitter man. His life was so boring that he came 2 to 4 hours early to the site almost every morning, even when he had the day off. Other workers were nice to me, especially John, who is important to this story. John was a good man, nice, funny, and kind. John really took me under his wing. But to the main story. This happened when the building was close to finished. I was cleaning inside of that building when I heard Bob's voice. Bob.
Hey, OP, why does this place look like this?
Me, looking around. Like what? Bob.
Like this. Tools all over the place. You need to keep this place clean.
Me. This is the construction site. We have tools. Workers use them. What do you want me to do? Collect them?
Yes, I need you to collect all the tools that are not in use right now.
You want me to collect all the tools that are not in use right now? Like take them to the outside storage so people need to walk all the way there to get them again?
What is your problem? Just do what I say. Collect all of them and don't do anything else until you're done.
Then Bob walked off. He just walked off. First I was mad, but then I thought, why not? And so I started to collect all of them. You let go of your hammer to use the circular saw? I took your hammer and walked off with it. I even found wheelbarrows that I used to take even more tools at the same time. I took all of the tools to storage. I separated different subcontractors' tools to different piles, so no tools were lost or mixed. At one point, John stopped me, very puzzled. What are you doing? We use these tools. Me. I know. I'm sorry that this makes things hard for you, but Bob told me to collect all of the tools that are not in use right now, so that's what I'm doing. John. Why would he make you do that? Me. I don't know. John. I'll go talk to him. Soon, John comes back. You didn't lie. Bob just told me to let you do your job. Me. Well then, I'll do my job. I took more tools to the storage. After like an hour or two, other workers started putting up signs like, I'm using this, or this is mine. And of course, I didn't take those tools again. I had to explain my surprising enthusiasm to steal people's tools many times, but all of the workers were nice, so they just took more cardboard and made more signs. Soon, Bob started to notice the signs of the workers, and he wanted answers. Bob.
What are these signs?
Me. Workers put them up.
Yeah, but why?
Before I have time to answer, John intervened. You told OP to collect all of the tools. She did it so good that we didn't keep up, so we put signs to mark tools that we're using. Bob.
Why didn't you stop her?
John. You told me not to. Me. And because I've been running around gathering tools, I have not done anything else. Bob.
Why not?
Me. Because the tools are constantly coming back inside, and no one uses them. I got yelled at, but it was worth it. Thanks for reading and have a nice day. Edit. Big thank you for all the people who gave me awards. I have never got so many. I hope that everyone has a great day. Am I the jerk for backing out of my cousin's wedding at the last minute? I'm 28, female, and my ex-boyfriend, 26, male, broke up with me 6 years ago after I cheated on him. My mother didn't approve of me dating non-Asian men and would introduce me at get-togethers and parties to Asian men who she thought would be a good fit for me. One of them ended up being my partner. I don't want to get into it. I just want to say that I did regret it and I did love my ex, but he was right to kick me to the curb. 2 years after we broke up, my cousin turned up at an event with him. They were happy and he had a good paying job in IT. I was still with my partner in a miserable relationship that had already been going downhill. He was mean like my mother and was very rude to my ex and cousin. The scene he made is what led to us splitting for good. My cousin and I used to be close, and so I asked her to stop dating him, but she refused. This caused a rift for a while, but eventually I came to terms with it. I met an amazing man, 26, male, and I fell in love. He helped me get over things, rekindled my relationship with my cousin, and even find closure with my ex. The two of them became best friends, and I was truly happy. Sure, it hurt to watch my cousin get what I had given up, but I had a great man, and she had a great man. Things changed after my cousin got engaged and asked me to be the bridesmaid. We had been good for years, and I knew it was leading there. My fiancé was asked to be one of my ex's groomsmen, but my cousin wanted me to be her maid of honor. At first, I was happy about it, but eventually I grew bitter. I didn't want to say anything to my fiancé or anyone, but I hadn't felt jealous or resentful in years. But watching the wedding unfold brought it all back up to the surface. I didn't tell my fiancé because I didn't want to be accused of still having feelings for my ex. I love my fiancé. This was just a bridge too far. I was cool until just before the wedding when I got a chance to listen to my ex and my fiancé as they worked on his vows with the best man in my house. It was all about loyalty and how he would always honor her, how he had only ever thought he was in love before they met. I couldn't handle it and started having panic attacks and realized I couldn't do it. I tried to get out of it, but with the wedding only a few weeks away, no one would let me. I couldn't tell my fiancé why because I didn't want him to think I still had feelings. So I tried to go, but had a panic attack and fainted early. After that, I just knew I couldn't do it, so I shut off my phone and left. Now everyone is mad at me. I told them all I couldn't do it, but no one listened. The only one not angry with me is my mother, and only for the wrong reasons. She thinks I was protesting the wedding. It was just too much. Am I the jerk for not wanting to ruin the wedding by passing out during the service or something? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
This is one of those stories that I'm really looking forward to reading your comments on, so please do let us know what you think.
Am I the jerk for telling my daughter to stop crying since this isn't about her? I have a 28-year-old daughter and a 33-year-old son. I remarried 1 year ago to my wife, 30 female, and I had told her while dating that I was in my 60s and I wasn't aiming to have more kids. For the past few weeks, my wife had started acting strange and said she felt sick and tired. The other day, my wife and I were visiting my daughter and her boyfriend who just got an apartment together. My wife was on edge the whole time. Finally, she blurted out that she found out she's pregnant. She looked apprehensive, so I asked why she was treating this like bad news. She said she wasn't sure how I'd feel about the news, so I told her that it was unexpected, but that especially recently, I've come to really value kids in a way I couldn't when I was younger, and was either away from home altogether or working 13 hours a day, 6 days a week. I told her that my business is very much hands-off now, and this time around, I have time and resources, and I'm so excited to devote that to our kid. And that I would do everything to make our kid the happiest with the happiest family. My daughter was in the adjacent room, but I didn't notice that she had walked in. She started sniffing, and when I asked what's wrong, she started full-on crying. She curtly said, "Congratulations," and started walking out. I caught up with her in the hallway, and she spun around and said, "Great to see that you finally calmed down, Dad. If only it happened 25 years ago, and not just because of age." I told her that I was only trying to make my wife feel better, and that she didn't have to cry and yell because this wasn't about her. This was about letting an anxious woman I loved know that she and her kid would want for nothing and worry about nothing. She looked furious and said, "Yeah, this is about a kid who is going to get a chill, indulgent dad and a happy mom because he got him the second time around." After that, my wife and I left because we knew we weren't welcome at the moment. Am I the jerk for defending what I said and for telling my daughter that this really has nothing to do with her and everything to do with a baby I intend to be a great dad to? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for what he said or not? Please let us know.
He is the jerk for not even trying to understand his daughter's feelings. Too bad he can't see that.
I don't work at this furniture store, Karen. So I was out today with my boyfriend and 2 of our friends to go mattress/furniture hunting. We had already been a couple of stores already, and I started to need to relieve myself. The employees of the store we went to were wearing business casual clothes. I was wearing a sweatshirt from my college and some black joggers. I asked a lady at the front desk where the restrooms were, and she said they had one behind 2 black swinging doors in the back warehouse type area. When I was finished, I went back to the floor area to find my boyfriend when I heard,
Excuse me?
me, looking at the source of the noise, confused.
Yes, you. I've been here 20 minutes already, and none of you have offered to help me yet. Every other store I've been to, the employees have greeted me at the door and asked me if they could help me.
Me. Well, I'm sure if you were to ask an employee, one would be happy to help you.
Well, I'm not supposed to have to ask for help. You are supposed to offer it, whether I need it or not. I finally gave up on waiting, so I am now asking you to help me. So you better do your job before I get you fired and give this place a bad rating.
Me. Ma'am, I don't work here. I would recommend going to ask an actual employee for help.
I know you work here. Why else would you be coming from those back doors?
At this time, I noticed my boyfriend was starting to walk towards me. Me. Yeah, there's a restroom back there. I'm here to look at furniture just like you. Boyfriend. Hey, are you ready to leave? Friend 1 and friend 2 went back. Karen rudely cuts him off.
I want this girl fired. She refused to help me and tried to pretend she doesn't work here.
Boyfriend. First of all, you are not going to talk to either of us like that. Secondly, you've got to be dumb to not be able to tell that she doesn't work here. I suggest you leave us alone before we get the manager. He had a pretty stern-sounding voice, and her jaw basically hit the floor. I think she got the hint after that and probably went to bother someone else. We left the store, and he had to listen to me rant about what a stupid jerk she was being over dinner as well. Sir, I said I sell power tools. We've got me, female 23, friendly, nice, bubbly, you know, all the good qualities, tool vendor wearing a branded black polo shirt. We've got the old man, male and around 80, old, not wearing a mask, carrying around a visibly strained and used hand pump sprayer for spraying weeds. Old man.
You, young lady, where can I find this? I need to exchange it.
Me. Good afternoon, sir. I can help you find the sprayer section. I'd just like to let you know I'm the brand name vendor, so I'll just help you find it. I don't think you'll be able to exchange it since it's been used, but let's find an option that will work for you. Walks over to the end cap with a sprayer. Me. Well, it looks like we don't have the same brand here. Check the website app to verify. But it's a 2.5 gallon sprayer. So these, points to the 2.5 gallon sprayers. Old man.
This sprayer I bought last year doesn't work no more. I just put it out today to use it for the first time this year, and it doesn't work. I need you to exchange them.
Me. I'm sorry that's not working for you. If you're interested in a new battery-operated one, I'd love to set you up with one. But if not, these would be your options for a replacement. Old man.
Now listen here, I'm not buying another piece of crap that's just gonna break on me. You're going to exchange these for me because it's broken down on me.
Me. Sir, I don't work for the Home Depot, but due to my knowledge, they don't do exchanges for products that have been used. I would recommend checking out the options on the shelf here, and if you have any questions, look for someone in the orange apron. The Home Depot employee walks by wearing an orange apron. Poor guy. Old man.
Hey, you!
Points to the associate, who goes over to him.
This pretty girl won't help me exchange my broken sprayer. She said you can do it since you work here. This is broken. I need a new one.
Home Depot associate. Hi, do you have a mask? Old man.
That's fake. I want you to give me a new sprayer. This one's broken and I need one now.
Associate. Okay, well, if it's broken, you can buy another one. We don't have that brand, but these here are the same size and only like $15. Old man, yelling now.
No, I will have you exchange this. I only bought it a year ago and it's already broken. This piece of crap, I'm not paying for anything else, you stupid idiot. I didn't break it. Your store sold me a bad tool.
Mind you, Home Depot doesn't sell this brand, so he didn't even buy it from this company. Associate. Here, let me take you to customer service to see what they can do for you. Old man.
You better give me my exchange. I'm not paying for another one.
He walks past me, reaches out and squeezes my shoulder and literally coughs in my face. Old man.
God bless you, girl. Take care of yourself.
Me internally. Get away from me. What's crazy is interactions like this happen every single day and are often creepier. Ugh, why can't people just be decent? He liked his stolen watch so much, he came back to buy one. I used to work as assistant store manager at a retailer of primarily watches and leather goods. At this particular location where I worked, we had 3 points of entry and never much staff working, 2 to 5 depending on the time of day and the day of the week. The floor plan was set up so that even if you were trying really hard, while also not helping any customers, you could barely see 2 entrances at once. Additionally, we only kept about 20% of our display product under glass and had no security guard, and our watches were all in the $500 to $2,000 range. It was an LP nightmare, and uniformed officers and detectives got pretty used to visiting at least monthly, if not weekly, during busy shopping seasons to take down theft reports and to follow up on them. It was stressful, tedious, and probably the worst part of the job. One busy summer weekend day, when I was the only manager on duty, we noticed 2 watches were missing from their displays, so I had to step off the floor to review our security camera footage. We had something like 10 different cameras, and throughout my tenure at this retailer, I had gotten extremely proficient at snipping footage and capturing stills from our security cameras to provide to our LP team and the police department. So while reviewing the footage, I found some great angles of the culprit concealing watches and a pretty good shot of his face from where he entered the store. Needless to say, I knew what the guy looked like. We informed the other retail location in our area that we had been hit, only to find out that the guy had gone straight there, and in the short amount of time it took us to figure out the watches were missing and review the footage, he had already returned one of the watches for store credit. Bold. Cut to about a month later. I'm the only manager working again, and guess who enters the store? The shoplifter. He has returned to the scene of the crime, and guess what? He's brought his fiancée. And guess what else? He's wearing the watch he stole and wants to use his store credit to buy another watch as a gift for his business associate. Knowing that the best deterrent to shoplifting is excellent customer service, this is something I learned in luxury retail that has worked pretty well in my experience, since you can keep an eye on things while also not being the jerk whose behavior is blatantly accusatory. I started helping the guy as he and his fiancée shopped, while also whispering to all my associates that we needed to watch him because he had stolen from us before. He shops with us for about an hour, playing up how excited he is about his watch and about getting one for his associate. But folks, he had no clue who he was up against. 5 years of improv training. Anyone? On the sales floor, I'm all smiles, trying on watches with him and his fiancée. But in the couple of moments I get to walk away and hand them off to my associate, I'm able to sneak off into the office to call the police and to confirm from my footage that this is 100% our guy. By the end of the interaction, I'm in the cash wrap with my associate who is gift wrapping the new watch, and our thief kind of corners us to see what we're up to. We can feel him getting progressively more antsy, which is reasonable since we're taking our sweet time finishing the transaction as we await the cops. We assure him our system is just slow, and he sees my associate clearly trying to perfect the gift's bow. After we finish the transaction and handed him his ill-gotten wares, we watch as he hurries his comfortably seated fiancée out of her chair so they can get the heck out of Dodge. They exit, and we see him through our window fumbling with his phone to reactivate the app-based ride-share moped they were using to travel. As he's doing this, the cops cruise by and stop just a few car lengths ahead. They get out of their car, and as they approach our door, I look at them with wide eyes, frantically pointing out our thief. They go and arrest the guy literally just as he's sitting down on the moped with his fiancée, who is visibly baffled by this development. After all this was said and done, the detectives come and commend me on doing their job for them. Shoplifting arrests after the fact rarely happen, so they were pleased to close the case, and I end up looking the guy up because he gave his real name for the transaction, and I find out he's some kind of a jet-setting yoga instructor. I did see his yoga instructor bio, who travels the world, and literally has Instagram posts of him wearing his stolen watch. Clearly, the guy could have afforded it, but got some kind of thrill from shoplifting and returning to the scene of the crime. As for the fiancée, while I have sympathy for her, it's probably better she found out about his kleptomania before saying I do. Anyway, I left that job a few weeks later to work at another company where I'm happy to report that I haven't had to file a single police report for the entire year I've been there. Karen demands I pay her college tuition. I, 44, male, am divorced and have been for over 10 years now. My ex-wife and I have 2 kids, one son, Ben, who's 19, and one daughter, Lauren, who's 17. My ex-wife and I split custody 50-50, and I paid child support on time every month, as well as ensured our kids had everything that they needed for sports and other activities. At a young age, I started a college fund/early life starter fund for the kids, which they were aware of and has grown to a large amount through the years. Over the years, I have always had my kids on my time and tried to be present in their lives. Ben has always been happy to come to my home, have family time, tell me about his life, have a father and son role pretty much. Lauren, on the other hand, is the total opposite. She pulled away at a young age, and when she was old enough to decide for herself, she cut me out pretty much 100%. I spent years reaching out to her and trying to build some type of bridge with her, but nothing ever worked. She went to a few different therapists, and I can only hope that it helped in some other aspects of her life, but it certainly didn't help in a family role. Over the past few years, my son has become angry with his sister and calls her ridiculous. I've told him to not mind that, and it's not her fault, but him leaving for college changed me on the whole thing. When he left, it felt like I lost my only kid, and I gave up trying to have a relationship with Lauren. She never reached back out, and neither did I. It felt terrible at first, but it's much easier to deal with mentally for me. A few weeks ago, Lauren and her mother reached out to talk about her college tuition and where she had decided to go. They asked me if I wanted to go walk the school with them again, and I declined. I told them that I felt I was only being invited because my checkbook was needed. I informed my ex and Lauren that I would not be paying for college or any other of her expenses after her 18th birthday, June, and that I was going to use the money elsewhere. My ex blew up at me. My daughter didn't say anything, and when they told my son, he called me to tell me that he thought I was right and Lauren was to blame. I wasn't a fan that they told him to begin with, however. Now there's a rift between the 3 of them. Should I just let this whole thing go and pay for her education? Would I be the jerk if I stuck to my decision? Update. I want to thank everyone for their time and comments. A lot of you have assured me this is the correct course, while others have disagreed and have been pretty rude. This is the best course, and I'll simply retire early and help my son with his first home. I don't expect to have a relationship with my daughter ever again, and that's something I need to make peace with. I won't serve as her ATM when she's in need though, and with child support ending in July, it will no longer be my concern. Therapy hadn't helped her much in the last several years, so I doubt she'll miss that much anyway. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you pay for her college or not? Please let us know.
Please do leave a comment. I really can't wait to read what you think about this one.
Entitled parent asks me to reevaluate if I want to keep my job, so I did. I, 19 female, work for my neighbors as a full-time nanny for their baby, Lena, who's 1. They have 2 other daughters, Haley, who's 8, and Taya, who's 11, but I've been specifically instructed by their parents that I am only there for Lena, not them. I wear a mask my entire workday, and so do the 2 older girls and parents. We are very aware and safe. So this past Friday, I was getting up for work, and I received a text from my boss, I'll call her Rachel, detailing that she and her husband would both be gone from the house until noon, and I was to skip my 11 a.m. break in order to make sure the other 2 girls would be supervised. I had just woken up, so I said okay and went to make my coffee. I had a hard time saying no on the spot, and it takes me a minute to think through some things. When Lena went down for her nap that morning, I texted both bosses and told them that I completely understood that there were going to be appointments that they had or things they needed to do, but I would like to be asked if taking on 3 kids and skipping my break is something I'm willing to do, rather than told. I also told them that my hourly for all 3 girls is $20, compared to the $15 I was making watching Lena alone, and that I would like to be paid as such. I received a long text from their mom around 15 minutes later that basically said they felt as though they had made several exceptions where my pay is concerned, and that she was perturbed by my message. She then went on to detail 3 different instances in which they had shown me kindness and felt as though I should have made an exception. To top it off, she asked me to reevaluate over the next 2-week period whether or not I wanted to keep my job. I was really taken back by this message, so I called my mom and asked her what she thought. My mom was angry. She told me that before lockdown, she would drive Haley and Taya to school in the morning along with my sister and would pick them up as well in the afternoon. I guess there was plenty of times my bosses assumed my mom would babysit after school with minimal heads up and leave. My mom had to tell them to stop or pay her for her time. I've also kind of felt like they were dumping all their kids on me, especially because I serve as unpaid supervision for the 2 eldest due to the fact that both parents work in isolated parts of the home. I constructed my own message back and detailed my own 5-point list of kindnesses that I had shown the family, including last summer when I worked the same job I work now for $5 an hour to help out when the mom had to take on a summer job. I've also recently agreed to take on an extra 10 hours weekly with no increase in pay to show my appreciation for this job. I then told her that I didn't understand how any of what she said had to do with the fact that I need to be asked in advance to take care of all 3 girls. I told her I was unsure of what I had said that was deserving of a response asking me to reconsider if I wanted to keep my job. I put in my 2 weeks and told her that I did not appreciate my job stability being threatened over something so minimal, to use this time to find alternative childcare, and that we would part as friendly neighbors. They pretty much freaked out. I don't think Rachel was actually expecting me to quit. She told me I had stressed her out by texting her in the first place, and that she was just trying to make sure I was being properly paid because I had made it sound like they were shortchanging me. I told her that they were, and she shouldn't have threatened me. She looked at the floor, and the poor husband was trying to do so much damage control. It was pretty awkward. I do love the little one I babysit, but this has been such a mentally and physically taxing job as it is. I guess this was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. This is kind of a bittersweet malicious compliance. I'm gonna miss her, but not how tired I am. And I definitely won't miss being taken advantage of. If you made it down here, thanks. I know it's not super juicy, but standing up for myself felt like a small victory. Edit. I just got off work, and I'm so happily overwhelmed by your responses and awards. Thank you all so much for your insight, advice, and compliments. So many kind strangers on this app. This is truly so heartwarming, and I love reading everyone's jokes too. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart. Have you ever had a boss try to take advantage of you? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
I've got a co-host who does, I'll tell you that much.
Keep harassing me? That's going to cost you 5 years' salary. First, some background. A bit over 6 months prior to the start of this story, we had a change-up at the company I worked for. The old owner was a great guy that was retiring and handing the company off to his son, a real jerk just out of business school type. The son, with the mentality that the company is now his, went about restructuring, namely reassigning teams to different projects and leaving those that remained in their old positions to pick up double, if not triple, the workload. He did this all in the name of saving a little money. Unfortunately, my department, Safety and Engineering, of which I was the team lead, was not spared from this effort. In the end, I had it out with the boss and department head, ultimately costing the company 3 months of the entire department working 80-plus hour weeks and forcing a huge year-end bonus to be paid out to us. Unfortunately, after my initial meeting with the new boss, the son, he took a liking to me in a really bad way. Essentially, he really liked me and wanted to go out with me or hook up with me, or however you want to put it. He even enlisted his friends and secretaries to help him. It went on for months, just blatant harassment. They even made comments about me losing my husband, that I should just get back on the horse, so to speak. I kept everything, every email, every voicemail, and went to my best friend, who happens to be a really good lawyer, a contract lawyer to be exact. So not exactly their area of expertise, but they knew enough to help. This friend drafted a letter to the boss, essentially a "stop or we're going to start a big case over this" kind of thing. And yeah, everything stopped. However, I was then moved from working in office to a work from home arrangement. I knew what was coming. They were going to do their best to get rid of me, so I started documenting everything. But as luck would happen, I received an email chain from the bosses. A good friend of mine in the office who was in the email chain added me to the CC list. And wouldn't you know, it was back and forth communication of them discussing how they would get rid of me and pin the blame on me. The email chain was just disgusting. They hated me so badly and wanted me gone, but because of my contract, they would have to buy me out. But being the cheapskates that they are, you know they wanted me gone for free. So the company bosses started a campaign to try and torment me. They first tried to say that because now I work from home, they were required to install cameras in my home office to make sure I was being productive. Luckily, that did not work. You have to love contracts. They also tried assigning an impossible workload to me, but luckily, my team and I were almost like family, and they picked up the slack. After 3 months of this crap, I get an email and a phone call from the HR department saying I was getting laid off indefinitely because there was just no work for me. This was complete BS, given that we had several dozen projects we were working on. On a side note, in Ontario, there is no such thing as a layoff, as in the court's eyes, being laid off is considered an active dismissal, which is essentially the same as being fired. After this conversation with HR, I call my lawyer friend, almost in tears, just shouting, "Look what they're doing to me! Help!" She calms me down and tells me, "This is such a good thing. We have so much evidence against them." I had already forwarded and printed everything off that was sent to me, and it was lucky I did, because a few hours after I was laid off, my computer was remotely wiped clean. Everything was gone, leaving just a blank desktop. When I called the HR department to get copies of all my filed complaints, what do you know? Everything was gone. In their place was a bunch of BS reprimands that never happened, that I never signed or saw, dating months and months back, and all signed by the new boss, despite the fact that they were dated before he ever even took control of the company. It was clear they were total BSing, but I got copies of everything to add to my stack of records. I texted all my old colleagues to let them know what was happening and that I'm basically gone. Like I said earlier, we were like family, and with me on the way out, they started looking for better employment. Not only that, but they contacted all their friends who worked for the company to do the same. I was laid off on a Monday, and on a Thursday, I walked into the office with my employment lawyer. I swear, the main secretary was on the phone to security the second she saw me walk in, and they were at the door in a matter of minutes. My lawyer simply handed her a legal document, a summons to meet for mediation at his office on the next Friday. During the following week, I received so many calls and text messages from the bosses, friends, secretaries, and people I know in the office to just be friendly with the owner, to just drop it, and that they wanted to bring me back and forget about everything. Like heck I was going to go back to such a hostile work environment. Friday finally comes around, and into my lawyer's office, my former boss walks in with a squad of 4 of his lawyers to settle the matter. And off the bat, he offers me 3-month severance to end all of this, because I didn't have any evidence to rebut the fake paperwork they had on file. At this point, my lawyer starts to bring out all the paperwork we had, namely copies of every complaint I had ever filed, which were all signed by the bosses, HR, and myself. Luckily for our case, I had made sure to take a copy of each complaint when it was written up. They didn't think I had anything? Oh boy, were they wrong. My lawyer made the case that in court, it would be obvious that all the paperwork they had on their end were forgeries. Nothing was signed by me, and he pointed out that there were dates with the boss' signature where he wasn't in the country, let alone working for the company yet. At that point, the boss and his lawyers went to speak privately. About half an hour later, they came back with a much better offer, a full year's salary. But my lawyer was like, nah, we'll just go with what the contract says, plus go for damages in court. Given the recent change over at the company, the lawyers seemed to know they couldn't afford this going to court, not to mention it would be so bad for the company's reputation. So they basically rolled over and asked, what do you want? We demanded 5 years' salary plus the average bonus I would have made for each year, all the legal fees paid. It was a big win, but it didn't end there. I got a little taste and wanted more. I made phone calls to several companies where I had contracts and found jobs for every member of my team and several members of other teams. By the end of the week, the company lost 10 of its most talented people. Not to mention, most of those people had friends and colleagues that ended up following them to their new employers. The fallout was pretty bad. Before all of this, they had the pick of the litter when new university students graduated. But now, because they lost almost all of their senior people, they had no one to mentor new employees. Plus, word got out fast on how they treated workers like crap, so no one with any talent would even think about getting near their company. As of today, the company is just a shell of its former self. It's still big, but it bleeds money. They also now have a problem with permanent staffing and are paying out the nose to hire subcontractors. Let's just say they don't make money like they used to. In fact, they have not started any new projects in something like 9 months. If something isn't done on the side of management to improve things fast, they will likely be going bankrupt in the very near future. Am I the jerk for telling my parents I don't want to buy a house with you? Hey everyone! So I'm Indian American, and if you're Indian American, you know that parents and relatives love purchasing expensive houses to flex on others even if they can barely afford it. Same goes with luxury cars, luxury huge houses, expensive clothes, gold. So I'm 26, male. I work as an HR administrator and I make around $60,000 US after taxes, which isn't much, but I don't mind. I'm able to have basic necessities, rent a nice apartment, and have plenty of money for my hobbies like gaming, woodworking, and books. My parents in general think I'm a failure and that I'm dumb and I'm not successful. Long ago, they cut contact with me. All the words and ways they treated me started affecting my mental health extremely bad, resulting in numerous mental disorders, which I take meds for but still isn't gone. So since we distanced, I've been feeling much better. Recently, they wanted me to come over to their house because they wanted to talk about something important and it can't be said over the phone. So I came over and they made lunch and treated me nicely. And then my mom and dad started talking nicely and both of them apologized to me and said that they love me and all. They acted really friendly. I thought they actually changed for real because it's been a few years since we came this close. Then they cut to the chase and said,
We want to buy a new house and it costs $500,000.
Then they showed me the pictures of the house they want, and it's a beautiful house. It's 5 beds, 5,000 square feet, with a luxury gate and a huge land, pool. I say, nice house, Dad, but where will you get this type of money though? Loan or something? You retired and you don't earn as much as you used to, and Mom's a housewife, so $500,000 might be out of your range, right? Then my dad said,
Oh, no. We aren't going for loans. You pay us $250,000 and I will put $250,000. Then I can buy the house.
Immediately when my dad said, you pay us $250,000, I was shocked and just got up quickly and told them, sorry Dad, I can't afford $250,000 at this moment. I don't have that type of money. I don't want to buy a house with you. I quickly leave, and before I closed the door, my dad said,
I thought you loved us. Don't you want your old parents to live in a nice home? I brought you to America, and now you're leaving your parents?
Mom starts fake crying, and my dad is telling me,
Wow, you're leaving your old parents. You should be ashamed of yourself. I knew you were a failure. Disgusting.
Mom continues to make boo-hoo noises and fake cries, and says some really mean things to me in Hindi. I just closed the door and left. I have saved up a good amount of money, around $100,000 US for my job, side hustles, etc. But I don't plan on purchasing a home right now because I'm not certain where I will be living permanently yet. Plus, with job layoffs and all, I don't want to have all these responsibilities yet, especially at this time. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or are his parents? Please let us know.
Those have got to be some of the worst parents I've ever heard about. Sometimes I can't believe people like that actually exist.
So you will close my account if I don't agree to pay higher interest rates? Okay. So this was back during the 2008 government mortgage crisis. Had great credit, a great job, and multiple credit cards I used to manage the different properties I owned, a personal card, gas cards, etc. So one day I get a letter from a credit card company that rhymes with Apple Pink, saying that they unilaterally were raising their rates from 13.99% annually to 27% annually. If I wanted to keep my card, something many people during the crisis needed to do to survive, I had to agree to the new rate. Otherwise, they would close my account. I would not be able to make any more changes on the card, and I would have to continue making monthly payments at my current interest rate until the card was paid off. Of course, I had done nothing wrong credit-wise to deserve this treatment from my credit card company, almost doubling of my interest rate, so I called their service line. After being on hold for over 2 hours, I finally got to speak to a CSR, and after not getting anywhere with her, I had to hold for another 30 minutes to talk to her supervisor. I was basically told, very rudely, that I could either accept the new rate or choose to close my account. Those were my only two options. Incensed, I said, "Fine, close it," and they did. What they didn't know was that a week prior, I had transferred all the balances from my other cards, over $22,000, to their card without paying a transfer fee and at a promotional rate of 1.9% for 1 year. But because of the law at the time, they could only charge me at a rate of 1.9% until the loan was paid. Here's the malicious compliance part. So here I am, 13 years later, paying the absolute minimum payment I am required to make each month, never missing a payment and never paying late. Otherwise, their default rate of 27% would kick in. Since the inflation rate during these years has been well over 1.9% interest, I pay. It's like free money. I paid off every other creditor I had with the money I saved and don't even use credit cards anymore, as I've been able to save enough to live on a cash-only basis. They've tried multiple times to get me to reactivate the card or to transfer the balance to another super-duper account with lots of benefits for me, like paying a much higher interest rate, without success. The only thing I lament is that all good things must come to an end, as my balance is now down to $1,000 or less, but at least it will last another couple of years. P.S. Young folks, I lucked out. I would have been up a creek otherwise. If you don't have a credit card now, strive to not ever get one. Do you know who I am? So a few years ago, I used to work for a tech company with a fruit logo as a technician. Most of the job was making appointments and checking people into the Genius Bar. I routinely got put on check-in, which I didn't mind because I was fairly good at de-escalating the angry people who came in for appointments to get their devices fixed and told we have long wait times. The store was only slow when we closed. It was more common for walk-in wait times to be 2 hours plus, but if people were nice or genuine, I knew some ways to make the appointment time significantly less. After a while, I got talked to by my leadership to try to avoid doing that and to move through the line because it affected the amount of in-store wait times and made us look bad, which is fine, I understood that. However, anytime an angry customer came in and threw a hissy fit, super rich area, and the never being told mentality was common, the management folded over and did whatever they asked. A few days later, I'm back on check-in and the line is to the door and packed. We have 2 people on check-in and moving quickly, but not quick enough. I see a larger dude in a nice suit that walked into the store and right past the obvious line straight to me and starts yelling he has to be seen right now. He tells me he has an issue with his phone that sounds like a simple software bug that we can easily fix, and I tell him, "I'm sorry you're having these issues, but rest assured we can and will get them fixed for you. Unfortunately though, our wait times are extremely long, but if you return to the line and wait, I can either put you in our queue and text you when we're ready, or I can make an appointment for later on today or tomorrow." At this point, I notice his face is turning red, and he looks like he's about to blow. This dude screams at me, "Do you know who I am? Do you know what I do? I'm important, and I need this phone working now, so find someone to help me." At this point in the day, I was already tired and was about 30 minutes late for lunch because the line was so long and I stayed to help my replacement with the line a bit. I stopped what I was doing and dropped my customer service smile and looked at the dude with the dead-eyed, worn-out retail worker's stare and said, "Sir, I have no idea who you are, but if you need help with that, you're in the wrong place. The hospital is about 2 exits down. I suggest you go there. But if you need help with your phone and want to be seen right now, I will do so. If you tell every person you walked past that your time is more valuable than theirs, so you must go first. If they agree, I'll get you taken care of. But if not, get to the end of the line and wait like everyone else." Surprisingly, the dude actually turned to the lady I was helping when he barged in and started to say, "Ma'am, I have. Before she just cut him off and said no, I told him, "You heard her. Sorry, please move to the end of the line." I never found out who he was because he stomped like a kid and stormed out of the store, throwing the heavy doors open and disappearing from view. After he left, I helped the lady and went to lunch. When I got back, my leadership on the floor told me I should have tried to be more helpful. And I told him I just got talked to for being too helpful, and for the rest of the time I worked there, they didn't bring up the issue again. I believe the guy probably sent his secretary or assistant up, because that practice in the store was really common. The "Do you know who I am?" phrase became an inside joke between me and some coworkers when we had demanding customers. I got upgraded to husband from somebody I've never even met before, in my car. So I had to stop and get breakfast before I went to work and thought I'd put minimum effort in and go to the convenience store. I park my car in the front space and shut my car off. I then unlock my doors to get out. Well, in the split second in between these actions, my back door flies open and somebody with bags in their hands starts sitting down. Lady, I cannot wait to get home. Now, I've heard these stories about people being crappy in this situation, and I didn't want this lady to A, say some funny business happened in my car and I go to jail, or B, run out of my car screaming and I go to jail. So I turn around and politely say, "Me, ma'am, I'm not your Uber." Lady finally looks at my face.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I thought you were my husband.
Me, I say this a lot and it just came out. Not with that attitude, I'm not. Now she's laughing and slightly teary, I assume from embarrassment.
I'm so sorry. Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
Me, it's okay. Please don't make a habit of getting into random people's cars. Please look in the window next time.
I'm so sorry. I thought you were my husband.
I get that. Awkward silence. Please exit my vehicle.
Oh yeah, haha, sorry.
Have a nice day. So not the most exciting thing in the world, but it was definitely weird. And I guess maybe from her side it made sense. She gets off the phone with him and sees what she thinks is his car roll up. And as soon as she gets to it, the doors unlock. I get it. Still scared the crap out of me though. Nice lady. Some say she's still looking for her husband to this very day. Entitled mom waits until I go to the bathroom, then lets her brat eat all of my food at a restaurant. Hey guys, so been a while since I posted here. I was in luck. No entitled parents in sight for so long, but looks like my luck ran way out yesterday. Here we go. We've got entitled mom, we've got entitled kid, we've got decent dad, and we've got amazing manager. Alright, let's dive into some context here. So in my city, amid everything going on, patio dining just started opening in restaurants. I've been super careful during this whole thing, social distancing, the whole bit. Yesterday, I finally decided I wanted to go eat at a restaurant for the first time since March, and this one great restaurant near my house was doing patio dining. I show up and grab a table and place my order. Shortly after, my food comes. Entitled mom and entitled kid take a seat at the table nearest to me. I really needed to pee, and I had a whole bunch of stuff with me. I'd been running some errands. So I turned to entitled mom and asked if she would mind watching my stuff from her seat while I went to the bathroom. She was super sweet.
Oh, sure, honey. Go ahead.
And then I went on my way. But then, oh Lord. When I came back, I didn't even know what I was looking at. Her spawn was sitting in my seat, with his bare hands shoveling my food into his mouth. All of my bags were rummaged through and full of food from his dirty hands, and entitled mom was just sitting at her table, scrolling through her phone. Me. Whoa, what the heck happened here? Entitled mom.
Oh, hey, sweetie.
Looks like he took a real liking to your food.
He just couldn't keep his paws off.
Me. Ma'am, with everything going on right now, and you don't know where I've been, and I don't know where your kid has been, yet you thought we could just share food? He's eaten almost all of it. And what about my stuff?
Excuse me, you mangy tween.
I'm 19, by the way.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but you don't need to be eating all of that food, unless you want to get fatter than you already are. I also don't like you implying that my baby has something. As for your stuff, he saw some stupid knickknacks he wanted to play with in there. What did you want me to do about it? Quit whining and eat the rest of your food.
Oof. I'm in no way overweight right now, but as someone who struggled hard with eating disorders in the past, I was seeing red. Oh, and those stupid knickknacks she mentioned, 90% of it were birthday presents for my mom, whose birthday is coming up next weekend. Oh, and all the while as we're arguing, entitled kid is still eating. Entitled Mom and I start raising our voices when the amazing manager finally comes out. Entitled Mom,
Thank God you're here. This mangy child is trying to take our food and our stuff right over here. I'd like you to call the police.
He looked at Entitled Mom, and then back at me, and then back at Entitled Mom. Manager, ma'am, I'm not sure if you're maybe not in the right mindset. You seem maybe a little unhinged, but I was actually here when this young lady came in and ordered. I actually brought her food out since we're understaffed. I mean, I surely could have mistaken you two if you weren't a hag, but unfortunately for you, shrugs. At this point, a man arrives, our decent dad. I don't actually know for sure, but I'm assuming he showed up late to join the Entitled Mom and Entitled Kid for lunch after work because he was on a call still. He noticed the commotion and with a, "Here we go again" look, he hung up and came over. I explained the whole situation to him, and the Entitled Mom gave her twisted side of the story, and he immediately believed me, which makes me think that she's definitely pulled some crap like this before. Decent dad, honey, let's just leave, please. Come on. Manager, yeah, you guys are definitely leaving, but you still have this young lady's meal to pay for, and whatever reimbursement is needed for these items you ruined, unless you'd like the police to be involved. Entitled Mom,
Ha! In your dreams. I'm not giving you or this child a penny. Let's go.
grabs the kid and starts leaving and motions for Decent Dad to follow her. Decent Dad really silently came up to me and Awesome Manager and started apologizing profusely and taking out money from his wallet to give to me. Decent Dad, Here, please take this. I'm so sorry. Genuinely, I'm looking into a divorce currently with my lawyer, but she can't know about it just yet. Here, I'm really sorry about your stuff and your food. Please replace everything on me. I'm so sorry. He closed his wallet and left while still apologizing. I felt so bad for that guy. Jeez. I hope he gets out of this situation ASAP. Anyway, I think I find some comfort knowing that Entitled Mom has a surprise divorce fastball heading her way. That's gonna be a fun time for Decent Dad and pure amusement for little old me. No, Karen, I'm not checking the back room because you're not supposed to still be here. So, some background. This happened in the spring of 2020 during the height of the lockdown. I work at a supermarket, so we were one of the lucky businesses that got to stay open with little change in our store's operation. The only major difference was we closed at 8 p.m. instead of midnight. Because I work stocking the shelves, even though we closed at 8 p.m., I was usually scheduled until 9 or 10 p.m., depending on the night, and would spend the last hour or two of my shift stocking the shelves while listening to my iPod. Yes, I still have an iPod. Also, during the time of this story, my store was undergoing a pretty significant and much-needed remodel. So one night, probably about 10 minutes or so after we closed, I was stocking some hair shampoo when I felt a tap on my shoulder, which scared the crap out of me. I turned around and came face to face with an angry customer. I paused my music and took my headphones off, and the woman immediately half screams,
I can't believe they let you listen to music while working.
So I told her, Ma'am, we closed 10 minutes ago. She responded with,
I know, but I just need a few more things. Do you think you could check the back for some baby wipes? I need them for my daughter.
I sighed and told her, We're all out of baby wipes. She rolled her eyes and said,
You can't just check the back for me. It'll only take you 2 minutes.
I looked her dead in the eye and told her, No, I won't go check the back because I know for a fact we don't have any. And we closed 10 minutes ago. She huffed and whined.
So, you're not going to help me?
And I reiterated, We closed 11 minutes ago. At that moment, our night manager walked by during his final sweep of the store, saw the customer and said, Ma'am, you need to go check out. We're closed. And she said,
I just need a few more things, but this rude girl won't go check the back for something.
So my manager said, Ma'am, we closed. And even if we weren't, we have a construction crew doing electrical work in the back room right now. So for the safety of our workers, they're not allowed to go back there. Now, I need you to the last register and to check out because we're closed. The woman whined.
But I still need a few more things, and I don't want to have to come back tomorrow.
The manager sighed and told her, It's currently 8:13. Our registers will automatically shut off at 8:15. And once they shut off, they can't be turned on until tomorrow morning. So unless you start your transaction within the next 2 minutes, you're going to have to come back another day anyway. The woman huffed and said,
Fine, But I can't believe how rude you people are. She was listening to music when I first came up to her. I can't believe you allow that sort of behavior."
The manager sighed, looked at his watch, and said, "Ma'am, we're closed, and you have 1 minute to get to the front and check out, or I'm going to refuse to serve you." The woman stormed off towards the last open register while the manager followed behind her, and I went back to stocking shampoo while listening to my music. What would you have done in this situation? Would you have gone and checked in the back for her or not? Please let us know.
Good job, OP. Sometimes Karens need to be put in check.
Karen judges my exercise routine even though she doesn't even exercise. I've struggled to stay in shape ever since the lockdown shut down my school's athletic facilities, so I've been trying to run more frequently. Motivation has been a huge factor, so I signed up for one of those virtual races where you log your miles working towards a goal and a cute medal at the end if you finish. I signed up for a virtual race where your goal is to run 50 miles, but it doesn't have to be consecutive. You just log every time you run by turning the app on, and it accumulates to 50. I did that and it was a lot of fun. It got me out and running every day. I posted the medal with a photo along the lines of, "Just completed this virtual running challenge. Highly recommended." I did a couple more varying lengths and posted about them when I'd finished, just as an accountability measure mostly. Then, one of my friends commented on my most recent finish.
"You shouldn't post these. It's very misleading. You didn't actually run 50 miles."
I quickly commented, explaining it's not meant to be a continuous challenge. It's cumulative, copying the link for the event to the comment again. She replied that it was still a farce, and it's self-serving of me to be posting about completing a run that isn't even straight through, showing off a medal like a kid, because anyone can do that, so it isn't an accomplishment. Eventually, I snapped, telling her I never see her doing any running, so she had no right to judge my routine or what I post about it. Now I'm starting to feel badly about it though, because I could have defended my position without making it personal against her physicality. I don't want to become what I oppose. And what I said feels harsher than what she said, in a way, since she was talking about the events and I was talking about her personally. But at the same time, I was just trying to share my good feelings and stay motivated, and she went out of her way to rain on my parade. So I might have been entitled to speak up, so I'm really torn. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their friend? Please let us know.
Friends are supposed to build you up, not bring you down. I would have unfriended her after that first comment she made.
Am I the jerk for telling my dad that my stepmom deserves every penny she has gotten? So I'm 27, male. My stepmom, 53, female, has been in my life since I was 1 year old. My mom dropped out of my life when I was 3 months old and I never met her. My dad, 51, male, started a business when I was 10 and my half-siblings were 5 and 8. My stepmom would take care of us when we got home from school and then work 6 to 8 hours a day for my dad's business. I would remember her going out to distribute marketing materials, driving out with him to trade shows, do his accounting into the early hours of the morning, and filling in the blanks for employees who either quit or were absent in some way. Basically, she worked close to full-time and she would only take $1 a year because she wanted my dad to put her would-be salary back into the business. When his business started turning a large profit, around when I was 16, she worked more part-time but still never took a salary. But I feel like what she added emotionally to my siblings and I was worth more than she could have ever been paid in a full-time, skilled job because my dad was distant and a difficult person. However, 2 years ago, they suddenly split up. My dad moved on. By then, my stepmom still worked part-time for free but was mostly staying at home. But my dad, we all thought, was also close to being semi-retired. At end of their divorce, my stepmom got 50% of my dad's business. My dad is absolutely furious. He said it's so unfair that this was a tax on his hard work that deters further innovation from him, and that my stepmom didn't build his business. She merely stepped back and allowed him to do so. Every time he comes over to my house or comes to events for any of his 3 kids, he's angry. His greatest hits of complaints include, "Your stepmom took herself out of the workforce, and that's her fault. What has she ever done to get free money?" The final straw was when yesterday he complains that his girlfriend, 25 female, yells at him every day over the fact that my stepmom is basically a business partner now, and that, "If I was able to work 70 hours a week 16 years ago, she should be able to do the same at Walmart for the next 20 years. I finally snapped, and I said that until he can bite his tongue about my stepmom, I didn't want him coming over anymore. I also told him that in my opinion, my stepmom deserves every penny she's getting, and if I were the judge, I would have given her all that and more. Am I the jerk for being fed up? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their dad? Please let us know.
His new wife is 25? Bruh.
Oh, you want a photo roster of my staff to facilitate the tattling of tales? Okay. I spent my summers as a teen working as a lifeguard at the local lake/water park. The job was pretty hard. We often had large groups rent out the pavilions and leave them absolutely trashed, not to mention the state in which they leave the bathrooms, which we also had to clean. Alcohol was permitted, so the later it got, the drunker they'd get, and the less attention they'd pay to, like, making sure everyone was safe. We'd regularly have to rescue the kids who bobbed out too far, or worse, had gone down the water slide into water over their heads after assuring the guard at the top that they could swim. There were a fair share of adults we'd have to pull out of the deep water too, who were just far too overconfident in their swimming abilities. But we made up for the gross cleaning jobs and the constant dampness from saves with a healthy dose of tomfoolery, and it was the best job I ever had. Cut to a few years later. I still had summers off, but I'd moved with my partner to be more convenient for her job, so I got a job through a lifeguard company managing a local swimming pool in an area that is, to say, hoitier and toitier. The pool ran like a dream. No booze, no deep water, no slides, and significantly less danger. I kept the staff on their toes with stories of what could happen, and we prevented any serious injuries or accidents from happening with proactive rules enforcement. That wasn't enough for the members of this swim club though. They constantly found nits to pick, and my time as manager was spent mostly as complaint department. Not only did they want to complain to me, but they wanted to complain to their property manager about our staff. The property manager was basically the person who made the decision to outsource the running of the pool to the lifeguard company. We'd had a few good ones who rarely got involved, but this one was a typical micromanager. She wanted us to hang a poster with pictures of all the staff and their names so the resident busybodies could name names when they nitpicked. I said, okay, we'll put up a staff board with all of our faces on it. But I should mention, the lifeguard company took sun protection very seriously. We weren't allowed to guard without several layers of protection: sunscreen, shirt, sunglasses, hat, umbrella, etc. Plus, we were supposed to be rescue ready with the lifeguard tube in hand and our whistles ready. So that's how we posed for our pictures. If someone came to our impromptu headshot session out of uniform, uh-oh, can't have that. Put on a shirt. Here's my hat. Oh, and your sunglasses aren't polarized. Best wear mine instead. Pose with your whistle ready. Once the board was up, all of the lifeguards looked nearly identical. The lifeguard company owners, the people who actually hired and paid us, loved it. They already thought we were the model of professionalism, and this sealed the deal on that image. The members were still stuck complaining to the property manager by saying,
One of the blonde girls yelled at my kid for breaking the rules. Can we get her fired?
And the property manager would have to go through me anyway to find out who that was. Before my malicious compliance, if they could tell me what time they had a problem with something, I could just check the schedule and tell them exactly who was on duty, but never mind that now. I ended up leaving that job a few months later anyway because I couldn't keep up with the fabricated drama and the extreme levels of pettiness the members and property manager would stoop to. I did love testing the pH of those pools though. Anytime it was too high, I'd mutter to the staff, "Must be too many basic jerks here today." Am I the jerk for changing my son's school so he wouldn't have to shoulder the weight of helping his stepbrother? X, 40, male, and I, 31, female, have a son who is 11. X cheated on me with his current wife 3 years ago. X's wife has a son, Daniel, who is the same age as my son. The first 2 years were rough. Daniel's home was ripped apart too, and lashed out at my son because of it. He bullied him for a solid 2 years, made his life a living heck, to the point the school called us all in at various times, and there was tension between all of us because I requested my son be more protected, and I told my ex he needed to do a better job of protecting our son and not let him suffer because he decided to cheat with a married woman. My ex took me to court then because I requested at one of these meetings that my son and Daniel be separated in school, and my ex wanted to sever my education decision abilities because he said I was using the cheating to get what I wanted and to create more distance between the new brothers. The judge did not like hearing what he said, but it was my ex's actions he didn't like. From defending having them in the same class, despite the bullying being up to the level it was, to saying I shouldn't get a say in the decision, to admitting he left his wife, to attend meetings to his behalf at times, and then digging his heels in with the judge. The judge gave me full educational decision-making, where I only needed to notify X of any change. After the whole bullying ordeal was over, they decided my son needed to help Daniel with schoolwork because Daniel was struggling in school. This included in and out of school and taking up lunchtime if Daniel needed it. My son hated it. His relationship with Daniel has not gotten better because of everything that went on, and he told me he wanted to change schools. I weighed the options, and after talking to my ex about the pressure he put on our son despite everything that had happened, and him saying they were brothers and our son would grow to appreciate being forced eventually, I decided to respect what my son wanted, and I moved him from that school to another one in the district, which was possible because of my address and slight changes in zoning in the last 2 years. X expressed unhappiness with it, but that was it when I told him. And then our son didn't need to help Daniel as much. Until after Christmas, when both boys were doing school virtually, and they asked our son to help Daniel, and one time in an exchange with his dad about it, son said he thought moving schools would stop him from being forced to help Daniel. My ex went nuts and raged at me for moving him to stop him helping Daniel when Daniel is an innocent kid who doesn't deserve that. I told him our son was innocent too, and shouldn't have the pressure of lots of work/homework on him, and they need to get Daniel an actual tutor since he's struggling so bad. He called me a jerk and said it was spite for his cheating and punishing a kid. I see it as more of doing what's best for my kid, which is my priority. Do you think X is right? Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her ex? Please let us know.
I think maybe she needs to try to get full custody. Dad doesn't sound like he's doing a very good job.
Am I the jerk for not making sure that there was space in the fridge for my roommate's food? I, female 19, have a roommate. At the beginning of the year, I rented a micro fridge, a mini fridge with a microwave attached to it. I asked my roommate if she wanted to split the payment and share the fridge. She said no, because she wouldn't use it that much. I was completely fine with that, but still put it in our common area so that she could use it every once in a while if she wanted to. It's not that big of a deal to me. Fast forward to about 2 weeks ago. The night before I went to go get some snacks from Target and ended up filling the freezer in the fridge. It's not very big, so it's pretty easy to fill. Granted, some of the things that I put in the fridge don't necessarily have to be refrigerated. Gatorade, applesauce, but they're better cold, so I put them there. When I got up the day after and walked into our common area, I noticed that my Gatorade had been taken out of the fridge and placed on a shelf instead. When I looked inside of the fridge, I saw that she had put her sushi and a sandwich there instead. I was kind of in a bad mood, so rather than texting her like I probably should have done, I just took her stuff out and put my food back in. She got back about an hour later, very upset, and said that it was unfair of me to let her food spoil and to take up all of the room in the fridge. I told her that unless she wanted to pay for half of the payment for it, it wasn't her fridge, it was mine. She said that she didn't have the money for the payment. I know she has the money. She gets packages of new clothing about every 2 days, and that I should just be nice and let her share the fridge because some of the things that I had in there didn't really need to be in there. I just reiterated that it was my fridge and that I'd put whatever I liked into it until she wanted to help pay for it and walked back into my room. The morning after, I get up to see that it has happened again. Only this time, she took cream cheese out as well, which had gone bad overnight. Fed up, I took her stuff out and moved the unit into my room where she cannot access it. Pandemonium ensues. RAs are called. She tells them I'm acting like a jerk and taking away shared items. I tell the RA that it's my fridge. I'm the only one who paid for it, and that I'd chosen to move it into my room because, well, it was mine, and I was tired of how my roommate was acting when I was letting her use it. The RA just had a, "You're adults, figure it out," opinion on the situation, and I again asked my roommate if she would pay. She said no, so I said the fridge was staying in my room. She refuses to speak to me now, makes snarky remarks whenever I have friends over, and is overall just rude as heck. My friends asked about it, and I told them the story and have gotten mixed responses. Some of them think I dealt with it in the best way possible. Others think I'm acting petty. Am I the jerk, Reddit? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her roommate? Please let us know.
Please do leave a comment about it. I can't wait to hear what you think.
How an entitled mom tried to get me fired on my first day working at Subway because I did not know her order. I'm 16, and so recently I applied and got a job at Subway. Today was the first day of my job, and it was a relatively slow day, and it was almost close to closing, and apparently every Tuesday they have someone come in and order the exact same thing, a plain Italian BLT. But it being my first day, I did not know that. So the woman comes in and I think to myself, I can probably handle this. She walks up to the counter and says,
I'll get the regular.
Me, not knowing what their order is, says, sorry ma'am, I'm new here, so I don't know what your normal order is. So do you mind telling me? She gives me a glare that makes me think to myself, what did I just do? She immediately starts yelling at me.
Just because you're new here doesn't mean you shouldn't know my order. My order is the first thing they should teach you.
I say, ma'am, look, I'm sorry. I don't know your order, but if you could just tell me what it is, I will gladly make it. She says,
why should I tell you if I'm a regular? My son is in the hospital, and this is how you're going to treat me? By pretending to be new?
By this point, she was practically screaming at me, and the other person working with me came back out and just told me to head to the back while he does the order. As I'm heading to the back, I could still hear her screaming,
you should fire him. My son is in the hospital, and I have never been insulted this much at this subway. Maybe you should start teaching your employees better.
I couldn't hear much after that, as I had gone back into the back, but after around 30 minutes, the person I was working with came back and said that he had to call the police because she would not leave until I was fired. He said that he would call the manager. He pretended to call the manager and made statements like, you need to fire, insert my name here. He did not know entitled parent's order. He made those statements, then he called the police since she would not leave until the manager showed up and fired me. He said he would be here any minute. A few moments later, the police were there. He came back and told me that he apologized for the first and promises that it's not like this every day. So yeah, an entitled parent tried to get me fired. Entitled pharmacy guy can't wait his turn. Last week, my wife had thyroid surgery, and I went to pick up her medication right before I got to take her home, and I met one in the wild. I walked into the pharmacy and took a number from the little electronic ticket machine and got number 468, whereas the screen is on 126. Not a big deal, as they usually have two different queues for the pharmacists. I must be on a different numbering track. I sit down in the empty pharmacy and noticed it was odd that nobody else was there and just waited. Usually the place is packed, but this was the end of the day. Then an older man, probably an older baby boomer, came in and took a number. He doesn't even get to his seat before saying out loud that,
This is ridiculous.
As he walked to his seat, he keeps talking out loud that this is stupidly ridiculous and he's not going to stand for it. I wasn't sure initially what he was mad about. I've been there for about 5 minutes longer than him, and his butt hasn't even settled in his chair, so we haven't waited long at all. I'm in my late 40s, and I think because of my age, he thought I'd agree with him, because he kept talking about how he's not waiting that long. He kept trying to catch my eye. He was having an entire villain monologue, working himself up. I gave him one of those side eyes and went back to reading my phone. He sits a grand total of 5 minutes or less and then launches up out of his chair to stalk over to the window where the two pharmacists are working. He wasn't even willing to wait even a few minutes.
This is ridiculous. I have number 469, and the number is 126. I'm not dealing with your broken numbers.
He literally yelled at them. I could not hear what they said due to distance, but he responded,
Well, it sure looks broken. I don't have to stand for this.
It goes back and forth with him yelling, and he eventually goes back to his seat and starts talking about broken machines. Before he really settles into his seat, the automated voice called for 468, my number, and I got up to get my wife's meds. I got a very young pharmacist training a new gal who was kind and nice despite being screamed at by the angry old guy. I've been to the pharmacy a lot this year, and they are always super nice and respectful. As I left, I apologized that they had to deal with the angry boomer next, and the pharmacist and the gal he was training laughed, so at least I brightened their day. I doubt the angry guy heard me, and there's no real climax to the story. Just another entitled jerk who thinks they don't have to follow the bare minimum of expected behavior. We are not jollies. Please stop harassing us. In my house, we still have a landline, and the same house number my parents have had for over 30 years. Jolly's, a UK pet superstore, has had a branch in my hometown for 20 years now, and we've never had an issue with them until 2018. One day, my mom got a phone call from an elderly lady who began asking us about a pet food we had sold her that was the wrong flavor, and if she can come back and replace it, and we had no idea what she was talking about until she started asking if she was speaking to Jollies. After telling her that we are not Jollies, and the lady apologizing and laughing about it, she thought nothing of it and carried on with her day. Only to suddenly, for the next 6 months, get multiple phone calls a day from people asking for Jollies. It turns out that the phone number for our local branch was almost exactly the same as ours, except theirs ended in 88 and our number in 38. About 70% of these callers were fine and even apologetic about calling the wrong number, and my mom would kindly offer them the actual number, but the other 30% would get absolutely belligerent and rude. One particular afternoon, before we had figured out they had such a similar number, I answered the phone and a woman immediately started talking down the phone about her dog and wouldn't stop to listen to me. A little backstory. I'd just come home from uni, so I had no idea at this point this was going on. This isn't word for word as it was 3 years ago, but I remember a lot of it because it was so amusing afterwards. Karen:
I need to bring my dog in to be checked out. He's been sick, as ever since I bought him some treats from your shop. So you'll need to give us my money back, because it's not on selling stuff that's gonna make my dog sick like.
Me: sorry, who is this? I don't know what you're talking about.
Excuse me? I'm talking about my poor baby, who's currently suffering after eating stuff I bought from your shop this morning, and I need to bring him in to be looked at soon.
At this point, my mom has been quietly telling me about all the weird Jolly calls we've been getting. Me: I'm sorry, but you have the wrong number. This isn't Jolly's.
Yes, you are. I got your number off my receipt, so you have to be Jolly's. Stop lying and get me your manager, since you're obviously too lazy to do your job.
Me: I'm really sorry, but this isn't Jolly's. This is my house, and I really need to get back to cooking. I'm sorry, but I can't really help you. Goodbye. I hung up the phone and was on my way back to the kitchen, and the phone went off again. And of course, it was Karen.
How dare you hang up on me? I'll be coming right in now and get you sacked, and I'll be blasting you all over the internet.
Me: oh my gosh. I was trying to be polite before, but this is beyond a joke. This is literally my house, not a pet shop. Leave us alone. Bye. I hung up and left the phone off the receiver so that she wouldn't be able to get through again. Unfortunately, we got a lot of calls like that from various people, some who were even more unpleasant than the Karen had been. My sisters both started just lifting the receiver for long enough to check that it wasn't one of our elderly relatives, then hanging up immediately. A few days after that call, we ended up going to Jolly's to ask about it. Turns out, one of their tills wasn't printing the receipts properly, so the first 8 looked like a 3, and that's why we had been getting so many calls. They said that they would sort it out and even called us to say they had, yet the calls persisted for another 2 months before my mom called the phone company and got a filter added so the callers would have to state their names first and wait for us to accept their call. This stopped most of the calls, but we still from time to time get the odd call for Jolly's, and my mom, kind as ever, will answer to give them the right number. Sorry, I don't know where a specific item is. Go ahead, call the manager. Earlier this year, I was in my local grocery store. I had just got off work, so I was wearing a white dress shirt, dress pants, and a tie. Here I am, minding my own business, looking for taco mix, when a woman who's about 30 comes up to me. The lady asks me what aisle pancake mix is in, so I told her, I think it's in aisle 5. Lady walks away. No thank you, no nothing. About 5 minutes later, I'm getting something from the top shelf for my wife, who's standing next to me, when the lady comes up to me again, looking annoyed. This time she goes,
It wasn't in aisle 5. I went down there and it wasn't there. I ended up finding it in aisle 6.
I responded, sorry? Meanwhile, my wife is looking super confused. The lady goes on to ask if there was a washroom she could use. I tell her, sorry, I don't think the bathroom is for public use. But she interrupts me.
I have to use the washroom. This is ridiculous. You won't even let paying customers use the washroom? I demand to speak to your manager immediately.
At this point, I am now annoyed. My response, sure, but honestly, I don't think she'll care what you have to say about the store's washroom policy. By this time, the lady's husband and the store manager have walked up. Lady raises her voice.
You jerk! I demand to speak to the manager, now!
Her husband, looking horrified, quickly interjects. Honey, he doesn't work here. I look her dead in the eye. Yeah, I totally don't work here. I was trying to be helpful. Do you still want me to call the manager? Her husband answered, no, it's fine. Sorry. As I'm walking away, I hear the lady say to the store manager,
he has a serious attitude problem. You are just going to let him talk to customers like that?
To which he responded, sorry ma'am, he's not an employee. He does not work here. He is another shopper. As we're walking to the checkout lane, my wife goes, why do people always think you work in the stores when we go shopping? The next day at work, for good measure, I informed my manager that I had a customer complaint about my attitude and for not knowing what aisle pancake mix was on at the grocery store. She laughed. Am I the jerk for telling my partner to tone down their attitude and show me some respect and gratitude? Before having our kid, 8 weeks old, we agreed that I would be the working parent and my partner would stay home. We made this decision for various reasons, but we were 100% in agreement before trying to conceive. I'm now back at work, 50% at home and 50% in the office. I work 10-hour days, plus 3 hours of total commuting on the days I'm in the office. In the morning, I wake up, get myself ready, change the baby, dress the baby, feed the baby. I will try and get the baby to go back to sleep before starting work, but this doesn't always happen. When I work from home, I will take the baby during the day when I'm able to keep an eye on her and work simultaneously. After work, I look after the baby for 1 to 2 hours so my partner can have some time to themselves. Then we do bath time together and I give the baby her final bottle and put her to bed, after which I also sleep. During the week, partner does all the night wakings and on the weekend I handle them. I do all the house admin. I buy all the groceries and do a majority of the cooking. Laundry and dishes are split evenly. My partner handles all of the other cleaning. To provide some additional context, partner recently convinced me to lend $300 to brother-in-law who hasn't paid it back, and knowing him, he most likely won't. It won't bankrupt us, but we really could have used that money this month. I guess it had been a tough night last night. I slept in a separate room to get some solid sleep because my partner was snappy with me, saying something like, "Just come take her and get out," when I went to get the baby. So I took kiddo, did our usual routine, and then started work from home. My day started with a call during which I put kiddo back in my partner's room, and once again I got snapped at.
Isn't it your job to put her back to sleep before bringing her in here?
I couldn't. The baby didn't want to sleep. After my first call, I had no more planned for a couple of hours, so I took kiddo back. At around 10 a.m., I had more calls planned, so I took the baby to my partner and promised that I would come back later in the afternoon so they could take a longer nap if they wanted. I then went to make a bottle to save my partner having to get out of bed. As I passed the bottle to my partner to feed baby, I got a,
"What the heck took you so long?"
So I eventually snapped and said, "I get it, you're tired, but this is what you signed up for when you agreed to be a stay-at-home parent. Am I not working my butt off to provide for this family and to make up for the money which you wanted to give your brother? So tone down your attitude and show me some respect and gratitude." I didn't yell, but I was very stern. I also stormed out of the room and since then have just been working. Was I the jerk to respond this way?
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.